Chapter 1601. As he wasn't sure what level the cosmic creature was or what kind of power it had, Joan tried his best to hide his aura, hoping that it wouldn't discover him. In an unknown battle, anything could happen. Joan could adapt to the situation, but Tsukuyumi couldn't move. It would be troublesome if anything happened. Joan didn't wish for trouble, but the cosmic creature seemed to be heading for him. After breaking through the atmosphere, it was clearly charging towards the glacier rift. Although it might be a coincidence, Joan couldn't wait any longer. He didn't want to gamble. Rather than waiting for the cosmic creature to come and fight beside Tsukuyumi, he might as well attack first and distance the battlefield as much as possible. Without any hesitation, he summoned the Soul Reflection Mirror, Golden Sniper, and Star-Lord Covetous Wolf, and got them to guard the ice cave to prevent any accidents. Joan put on the invisibility cloak and silently rushed out of the rift, heading for the cosmic creature that was flying over. Joan originally thought that if the invisibility cloak could fool the cosmic creature's senses, he would use the golden flood dragon scissors to slice it into two when he approached. He would slay it first. However, before Joan could approach the cosmic creature, he saw it flap its wings, causing lightning to rain down like a storm. Immediately, the nearby area was enveloped in lightning. Terror-grade invisibility cloak is still too forceful. Joan directly activated the teacher domain. Within the domain's range, the terrifying lightning vanished. Summoning bamboo blade in hand, Joan continued charging at the cosmic creature. Although the lightning on its body kept spewing out, it would vanish the moment it entered the teacher domain's range. This made Joan feel a lot more at ease. As long as the teacher domain was effective, he had a huge advantage. When the cosmic creature saw the lightning on its body vanish, it didn't panic. It continued charging at Joan. Soon, the cosmic creature's entire body was enveloped by the teacher domain. The lightning on its body also vanished. Without any hesitation, Joan took out the golden flood dragon scissors and slashed at the cosmic creature. At the same time, Joan pulled out the immortal culling sword and used the most domineering immortal slaying stance to slash out a terrifying sword beam. In a battle in reality, when facing an unknown enemy, striking first was the best choice. It wasn't like in-game, where one could first understand the opponent's abilities. No matter what the opponent's ability was, as long as he could kill the opponent immediately, no matter how powerful the opponent's ability was, it would be useless. The cosmic creature was extremely fast. With a flap of its wings, it dodged the slash of the culling immortal sword. However, it was unable to dodge the golden flood dragon scissors. With a cracking sound, the space creature's head was directly cut off. Blood splattered across the sky as the head and corpse fell down and smashed into the glacier, smashing a large area of the glacier and causing blood to flow everywhere. Shiryu combined with the golden WIRM scissors is practically invincible. Joan was delighted. Shiryu could restrict the enemy's power, and the golden flood dragon scissors was an expert in close combat. There was really no better combination than them. The swan wings on Joan's back flapped as he instantly arrived in front of the cosmic creature's corpse. From the wound, one could see that its flesh was sparkling and translucent, somewhat similar to fresh prawn meat. Moreover, it was emitting a bizarre luster. The bones inside were like white jade, and there were fine scales on its body that also looked like jade. Just by looking at its appearance, one would think that it was a white jade statue. With a thought, the golden flood dragon scissors flew over and cut open its body, hoping to see if there were any dimensional crystals. He didn't find any dimensional crystals, but its single bone shimmered with a strange lightning glow. Clearly, it had transformed into a calamity. Such things were the food of calamity-grade creatures, and they were also the energy needed for the evolution of the calamity domain. The entire bone was very large, more than 100 meters long. It was impossible to devour it, so he could only use an essence energy art to absorb the energy within. However, Joan wasn't good at lightning powers. Even if he absorbed the lightning energy within, it wouldn't be of much use. Therefore, he stored the single bone in the chaos space. Although there was energy in flesh and blood, the energy contained was relatively low because it hadn't transformed into a calamity. Furthermore, the energy would quickly dissipate into the universe, so there was no point in keeping it. At most, he could roast some meat to eat. Zhou got the golden flood dragon scissors to cut open the space creature's head. Immediately, he saw a crystalline companion egg inside its skull. A companion egg. Zhou was overjoyed as he hurriedly took out the companion egg and used his phone to take a picture. Void True Salamander. Calamity Grade Evolvable. Life Providence. Body of Origins Life Soul. Soul of Lightning Wheel of Destiny. Void Kill Terraform. Lightning Origins, S-Grade, Calamity Domain. True Void Domain, Mortal Grade, Strength, 105 Speed. 101 Constitution. 124 Essence Energy. 117 Talent Skill. Wings of Lightning, Heavenly Lightning Strike, Wings of Lightning. Void Piercing / Companion Form. Mount. It's been a long time since I've seen a mount-type companion beast. This fellow's stats aren't bad, but this fellow is only at the mortal grade. Furthermore, it's at the lowest level. It's quite unexpected. From its might, I thought it was at the hell grade, Zhou thought. Although the Void True Salamander stats and level were weaker than Zhou had imagined, it was already a huge blessing to be able to obtain a Calamity grade companion beast. After some hesitation, Zhou put away the companion egg and didn't immediately hatch it. A companion egg could be used as a supplementary ingredient. If it was fused with a companion beast, it wouldn't change the companion beast's original characteristics. Such a high-level companion egg was very convenient to raise the level of a companion beast. If two companion beasts were to fuse, it would easily result in changes that were difficult to predict. Zhou cut some Void True Salamander meat and cut it into thin slices. He took out a stove and pot and dipped the meat slices in the pot before dipping them in some sauce and placing them in his mouth. Yes, it's really delicious. It's much more delicious than shrimp. Zhou couldn't help but marvel. Unfortunately, demonic neonate is still sleeping. Otherwise, she would definitely like to eat it, Zhou said regretfully as he ate the meat. As he was eating, he suddenly felt the glacier beneath his feet tremble as though a wave was spreading through the glacier. Zhou's expression changed slightly. Ordinary people might not know what had happened, but Truth Listener allowed Zhou to hear high-frequency sound waves that ordinary people couldn't hear. The sound waves came from beyond the planet. To be able to emit sound waves from outer space and affect the planet's interior, such power was truly terrifying. Zhou looked up into the void, and his expression changed drastically. He saw an extremely gigantic Void True Salamander rushing toward the planet. Its body was more than 10 times larger than the one Zhou had killed. Its body had almost completely transformed into a blazing white bolt of lightning. Like a lightning cloud that blotted out the sky, it descended towards Zhou. Apex. Chapter 1602. Upon hearing the gigantic Void True Salamander's roar, Zhou fell into a daze. He was still holding a pair of chopsticks with a slice of true salamander meat that had just been cooked. Zhou looked at the true salamander that was glaring at him in the sky as a chill ran down his spine. Without waiting for the Void True Salamander to react, Zhou threw away the chopsticks in his hand and activated Sure Domain once again. At the same time, he summoned the golden WIRM scissors and drew the immortal culling sword before charging at the Void True Salamander. Zhou knew very well that the smaller Void True Salamander was most likely the Void True Salamander's son. He had fooled the Void True Salamander's son, so there was no room for reconciliation. Unless he was willing to escape, it would be a battle to the death. However, Zhou couldn't escape either. If Tsukuyami was discovered, he would definitely die. A small Void True Salamander was at the mortal stage, so who knew what level this large Void True Salamander was? It was at least at the Hell stage, and there was a high possibility that it was at the Heaven stage. If he was unlucky and it was at the Apocalypse stage, Zhou was already prepared to flee for his life. The blazing white lightning on the Void True salamander surged and descended like an ocean. When it touched Sure Domain, the lightning immediately dimmed. However, the lightning didn't vanish like before. It only looked much dimmer, but it still maintained the form of lightning as it rapidly spread through Sure Domain. No way. Sure Domain can't seal it. Zhou Wen's pupils constricted as he instinctively teleported into space. The void true salamander's body was massive, but its actions weren't clumsy. With a flash of lightning, its massive body vanished like a bolt of lightning. When it appeared again, it was already in front of Zhou Wen. It opened its mouth in a bid to devour Zhou Wen. Before it could close its mouth, the lightning within had already bombarded him. All Zhou Wen could do was use the Chaos Egg to withstand the terrifying lightning strikes. Then, he teleported out before its mouth closed, escaping the fate of being devoured. Zhou Wen constantly teleported, rushing out of the atmospheric layer and arriving in space. During this process, the void true salamander kept appearing in Zhou Wen's vicinity. Its body vanished and reappeared like a bolt of lightning, nearly devouring Zhou Wen each time. Although Zhou Wen escaped death time and time again, he was constantly struck by lightning. Inside the Chaos Egg, a large number of solid essence energy crystals appeared. What was even more terrifying was that a portion of the lightning had seeped into the Chaos Egg, causing Zhou Wen's body to tremble. Thankfully, Shuryu had already sealed a portion of the lightning power, and the Chaos Egg had blocked more than half of it. Otherwise, a single bolt of lightning might have burnt Zhou Wen to a crisp. Now, Zhou Wen roughly knew that this void, true salamander was most likely at the Heaven Realm. This was bad news, but it was also good news. Zhou Wen already knew that he was far from being a match for the Heaven Realm void, true salamander. However, he still had the possibility of escaping. At the very least, he wouldn't be crushed to death. Thankfully, he had lured the void, true salamander away from the planet. Tsukuyami should be temporarily safe. Now, all Zhou Wen needed to do was lure the void, true salamander a little further away. Then, he could use the Singularity Universe to teleport to a distant star system and escape the void, true salamander's pursuit. The domain power of a Heaven Realm creature has indeed undergone a qualitative change. It can actually break through Shiryu's seal and the Chaos Egg's defense. As Zhou Wen fled, he circulated the boundless sword domain with all his might. The sword balls that filled the sky faced the blazing white lightning, but in an instant, they were all destroyed by the lightning. They all turned to the dark side and vanished. As for the terrifying lightning, it passed through Shiryu and struck the Chaos Egg. The Chaos Egg, which originally looked like it didn't have a single crack, had a crack appear at the intersection of words and words under the lightning strike. The lightning seeped in, causing Zhou Wen to cry out tragically as his hair stood on end. It was only because Zhou Wen's domain power was powerful enough that he had multiple domains. If it were an ordinary person at the human realm, or even the hell realm, they would have long been blasted to smithereens. Zhou Wen constantly teleported to escape, but the void true salamander was just too fast. When he teleported again, the void true salamander's gaping mouth was already waiting for him. Countless lightning bolts swept down. Zhou Wen no longer had the strength to teleport out. All he could do was use interstellar teleportation to teleport to a distant planet. As it was too urgent, Zhou Wen didn't have the time to choose which planet to go to. Therefore, he randomly chose a planet. As long as he could stay away from the void true salamander, it would be fine. The void true salamander hasn't been lured far away. I hope it won't return to that planet. Zhou Wen wanted to teleport back to see how Tsukuyami was doing. However, he was afraid that teleporting back would lure the void true salamander over. Tsukuyami wouldn't be able to move, nor could he touch her. When that happened, things would be even worse. As Zhou Wen was too far away from Tsukuyami, the companion beasts he had left with Tsukuyami had automatically returned to him. Now, Tsukuyami didn't have any means of protection. Just as Zhou Wen was hesitating, he saw a flash of lightning. The void true salamander appeared in front of Zhou Wen again. Even the interstellar teleportation couldn't shake it off. Holy sh**t. Zhou expression changed drastically. He had been worried about Tsukuyami just now, but now he could only worry about himself. The void true salamander was actually able to keep up with such a long interstellar teleportation. Zhou realized that it was impossible for him to shake it off. What should I do? Several thoughts instantly flashed through Zhou's mind as he thought of several plans. The first plan was to teleport back to Earth. According to Zhou's experience, the entire universe had a very strong law suppression on dimensional creatures. Furthermore, Earth's laws had a strong suppressive effect on dimensional creatures in the universe. Creatures at the calamity grade and above, even if they didn't come from a dimension, would still be severely suppressed on Earth. Even a native calamity, like Tsukuyami, had to leave Earth if she didn't want to be suppressed. Therefore, if he returned to Earth and used Earth's laws, he might be able to escape the void true salamander's pursuit. If it dared to chase him to Earth, he might be able to use Earth suppression to kill it. However, there was a drawback to doing so. If the void true salamander wasn't suppressed immediately after it rushed into Earth, or if the suppression wasn't strong enough to make it drop a calamity, it would bring a devastating disaster to Earth with its strength. Although such a disaster wouldn't destroy Earth, it would easily destroy a few human cities. As he wasn't sure when the void true salamander would be suppressed, Zhou didn't wish to take the risk. With a thought, Zhou decided to try the second plan. It was to head for the Big Dipper and enter the Big Dipper Palace. As long as he lured the void true salamander in and made it attack Stellar Lord Lusen, he might be able to kill it. However, Zhou wasn't sure if Stellar Lord Lusen's ability could kill the void true salamander. After all, the power of the Heaven Realm far exceeded Zhou's knowledge. End of this chapter. Chapter 1603. At this point in time, Zhou had no other choice. All he could do was give it a try. If Star-Lord Lusen's strength couldn't kill the void true salamander, Zhou could only return to Earth to seek refuge. It's no wonder even calamity creatures are very afraid of the cosmos. There are countless creatures like the void true salamander in the universe. If I'm unlucky and encounter one, I'm basically doomed. Zhou desperately used his interstellar teleportation ability to teleport to Fecta Pearl. The last time he had to use the Rubik's Cube was because he was in the dimension. This time, Zhou naturally didn't need to use the Rubik's Cube to enter the Big Dipper dimensional zone. He arrived at the entrance of Fecta's dimensional zone and saw the void true salamander descend with lightning that blotted out the sky. Without any hesitation, he used spatial teleportation and entered the dimensional zone. However, when Zhou rushed in, he was surprised to discover that he wasn't in the Fecta Palace, but the Dubhe Palace. Before Zhou could figure out what was going on, he saw the lightning dissipate as the void true salamander appeared in the Dubhe starry sky. The Rubik's Cubes all over the world lit up at that moment. The scene that appeared was the Dubhe Star Palace where Zhou was. It's the Egg Emperor. He's already in first place, so why is he still challenging the stage? What do you know? This is called transcending oneself. The Egg Emperor is awesome. The other creatures are all fighting for first place, but it's trying to surpass itself. Wow, what is that lightning? It looks like a true thunder dragon with butterfly wings. F***ck. The companion beast summoned by the Egg Emperor looks even more ferocious than the tiger-souled general. Many people believe that the void true salamander was a companion beast summoned by Zhou. When Zhou saw the void true salamander enter, he didn't dare stay any longer. He pushed open the door and rushed into the Dubhe Astral Palace, charging towards Star-Lord Covetous Wolf without stopping. When Star-Lord Greed saw Zhou enveloped by the Chaos Egg, he immediately used his Starlight domain. His fist carried the power of Starlight as he struck Zhou. The explosion of light was like a volcano eruption, drowning Zhou and the entire Star Palace. The void true salamander that rushed in from behind did not hesitate to send lightning bolts down. The Starlight domain, which looked very terrifying, was unable to withstand a single blow from the void lightning. Star-Lord Covetous Wolf and the Starlight Domain were instantly reduced to ashes by the lightning. Zhou braved the lightning and rushed to the teleportation array. He chose to teleport to the next star palace. How domineering. What companion beast is that? The Egg Emperor's new companion beast seems even more ferocious than the Tiger Soul General. That lightning power is too domineering. Where did the Egg Emperor's companion beast come from? This is so enviable. Many people's eyes turned red with envy, but they didn't know how bitter Zhou was. After Zhou teleported to the Jade Star Palace, the Rubik's Cube's image changed to that of the Jade Star Palace. Without any hesitation, Zhou pushed open the door and rushed in. Behind him, the Void Real Salamander also rushed in. Star Monarch Giant Gate had just stood up when lightning bolts came crashing down. Before he could even straighten his legs, he was blasted into bits, let alone open his mouth. Zhou sprinted crazily amidst the lightning and stood on the teleportation array again, teleporting to the next star palace. Another instant kill. This is too strong. The Egg Emperor is going to be invincible. What kind of companion beast is this? How did the Egg Sovereign obtain such a powerful companion beast? The heavens must be jealous of my handsome looks. Otherwise, why wouldn't I have such a powerful companion beast? Everyone watched the Void Real Salamander display its might with envy, jealousy, and hatred. As for Zhou, he had already rushed into the Fecta Palace. Now, Zhou was extremely nervous. This was his last chance. If Star-Lord Lutsuan's ability couldn't kill the Void Real Salamander, Star-Lord Lian Jun would definitely be useless. Zhou had yet to explore the later star palaces. It was dangerous for him to enter, so it was naturally impossible for him to continue. When the time came, he could only teleport back to Earth to seek refuge. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Zhou didn't want to take this path. Zhou's situation isn't looking good. Not everyone was that ignorant. Zhang Chuanxiu and company could tell that the Void Real Salamander wasn't Zhou's companion beast, but a dimensional creature that was pursuing him. That fellow really knows how to cause trouble. Can't he just stay at home? Why did he have to provoke such a terrifying creature? I think he likes courting death. Xiao Luchuan really couldn't understand why such a fellow was still alive. Wang Lu was extremely nervous when she saw Zhou when being pursued. She clasped her hands in front of her chest, as though she was praying. In a holy land, the holy deity was also watching the battle. Your Excellency, from the looks of it, it's a heavenly realm creature. Zhou actually provoked it. I'm afraid he won't be able to escape death, said the saint standing beside him. The saint's beard and hair were all white. He looked to be in his 70s and wore a white robe. It was impossible to tell which saint he was from. He can't die, the holy deity said indifferently. Your Excellency, why? The old saint asked in puzzlement. The Khanate Holy Temple's holy artifact is still with him. We have to get it back, the holy deity said. But I'm afraid it's too late now, the old saint said. He won't die that easily. At the very least, he still has the ability to escape. Get Xiao and Nanyang over. The two of you will go together and guard outside the Star Palace. If Zhou comes out, help that void quintessence. The holy deity looked at the scene in the magic cube with a deep gaze. After Zhou rushed into the Fecta Palace, he headed straight for Stellar Lord Lutsuan. Just like before, the Void True Salamander descended with thunderbolts and struck Star Monarch Lusan's body. Boom! Stellar Lord Lutsuan's body was blasted to dust. Almost at the same time, the Void True Salamander's body shattered, turning into countless sparks that scattered everywhere. Success! Zhou was overjoyed. However, in the next second, Zhou's joy froze on his face. The shattered lightning in the Void True Salamander's shattered body automatically gathered together and transformed into the Void True Salamander's appearance. Holy sh*T. That works too? Zhou was so depressed that he nearly vomited blood. A Heaven Realm Void True Salamander was a completely different creature from a human Void True Salamander. The Royal Egg's companion beast actually has an undying body. It's really powerful. When people saw this scene, they were even more envious. However, Zhou was on the brink of tears. Thankfully, Stellar Lord Lutsuan's abilities were indeed impressive. He also returned to his original appearance. The void true salamander's lightning struck down again, killing Stellar Lord Lutsuan once again. The void true salamander's body also split apart once again. What do I do? Zhou knew that it was meaningless for him to head to the next star palace. The only way out now was to return to Earth. He definitely had to return to Earth, but the problem was where to go. Recently, he had slowly adjusted. In a few days, he should be able to return the chapters he owed. Into this chapter. Chapter 1604. Before the void true salamander condensed again, Zhou rushed into the teleportation array and left the dimensional zone. The void true salamander's body condensed as it charged out with Zhou. The scene on the Rubik's Cube immediately changed to a ranking. The Tiger Soul General's name was still there, but the void true salamander's name had appeared on the rankings again. Furthermore, it occupied first place. Holy **T, the Egg Sovereign has taken first and second place. There's such a thing? This is heaven-defying. Most people imagined that the Egg Sovereign's companion beasts had appeared on the rankings, but that was only because they didn't understand the Rubik's Cube mechanism. In fact, there was no such thing as a companion beast appearing on the rankings. The words Tiger Soul General were written by Zhou himself. It represented Zhou, not the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General. Any creature on the list could decide their own name with just a thought. However, most people didn't know about this situation. They imagined that the first name on the rankings was a companion beast. Now that the void true salamander's name had appeared on the rankings, it resulted in such a misunderstanding. After Zhou left the dimensional zone, he immediately wanted to teleport back to Earth. He had already thought it through. He would teleport to Zhuelu and lure the void true salamander to the underground sea. There were dimensional creatures in the sapphire sky and the strange bone gravel desert there. Perhaps he could fight the void true salamander. Even if he wasn't the void true salamander's match, as long as he could hold it back for a period of time, allowing it to slowly be suppressed by Earth's laws, it would be time for Zhou to turn the tables. In fact, Zhou's first choice wasn't Zhuelu, but Chess Mountain. However, considering that Chess Mountain was too close to Luoyang, if the void true salamander began unleashing its might when it arrived, the residents of Luoyang City would be in a tragic state. They wouldn't be able to retreat to the dimensional zone in time. However, when Zhou used the Singularity Universe's interstellar teleportation ability to return to Earth, he realized that he couldn't teleport out. He frowned as he sized up his surroundings. He realized that the surrounding cosmos had produced a strange spatial distortion. The nearby stars seemed to appear like illusions. Several similar stars appeared in different directions. Zhou, we meet again. A familiar voice sounded from the cosmos. Zhou looked up and saw Xiao, Nine Yang, and a white-bearded elder standing in the void. Zhao's body seemed to have fused with the distorted void. The power that distorted the starry sky must have originated from his body. Zhou cursed inwardly. Xiao and Nine Yang were here. They had the holy artifact of the Holy Land. With the augmentation of the holy artifact, they could reach the heaven realm. Xiao came from the trajectory Holy Temple, which was best at playing with space-time. After this place was sealed by Xiao, it would probably be very difficult to use spatial teleportation to rush out. Nine Yang's body emitted a glow that resembled the sun as it blocked Zhou's path. The old holy disciple stood in the middle of the three with his hands hidden in his sleeves. His eyelids were drooping as if he hadn't woken up yet. He didn't use any strength. However, since he was able to come with Zhu Yang and Xiao, he was obviously not an ordinary person. He might even be a holy disciple with a holy item. While Zhou was still deep in thought, the void true salamander had already charged out, bringing with it a sky full of lightning bolts as it swept toward Zhou. With the powerful void true salamander behind him and the space being sealed by Xiao, and three holy disciples blocking his path in front of him, Zhou immediately fell into an extremely dangerous situation. Zhou instantly made up his mind. Without a word, he charged toward Xiao, hoping to draw the three of them into the battle. The void true salamander couldn't distinguish between friend and foe. When the lightning bolt struck, they would be drawn into the battlefield. When that happened, they might have a chance to escape. However, when Zhou charged toward Xiao and company, he realized that the space in front of him had become layered. It looked like it was very close, but he couldn't reach it no matter what. Zhou knew that this was likely Zhao's spatial domain. He immediately released his sure domain in a bid to seal the spatial domain. However, the power of sure domain did indeed seal a portion of the spatial domain, but it wasn't able to seal it completely. The space in front of him was still layered, making it difficult for him to charge through. Damn it! Zhou already knew that the power of sure domain could seal all kinds of domain powers. However, if the other party had reached a heaven realm perfect domain, it wouldn't be able to completely seal it. Furthermore, Zhou could vaguely sense that there was another domain power in the spatial domain. That domain power couldn't be seen or touched, but it was constantly being used. It also created some sort of restriction on Zhou. That power likely came from the old holy disciple. The two heaven realm domain powers had forcefully trapped Zhou in this starry sky. Even if Zhou had the chance to charge over, the 9 suns were already waiting for him with the holy artifact in hand. They definitely wouldn't give him any chance. Furthermore, Zhou had yet to think of a way to charge over, and the void true salamander was already behind him. Large swathes of lightning drowned the chaos egg, and the gigantic true salamander's mouth was about to swallow the chaos egg. Damn it! Zhou, when forcefully teleported, withstanding the void lightning and dodging the void true salamander's devouring. However, his teleportation could only be maintained within a very short distance. He was unable to break through the spatial layers and couldn't even charge out of the void true salamander's range. Zhou could only use all his strength to deal with the void true salamander while thinking of a way to escape. Give him more pressure. Try to end the battle as soon as possible, the old holy disciple said to 9 suns and Xiao. Xiao smiled and said, "Old K, there's no need to be so anxious. With both of our domains restricting him in this starry sky, he won't have a chance to escape. Sooner or later, he will die in the mouth of the void true salamander. Furthermore, if you and I enter the battlefield, we might give him an opportunity to take advantage of. It's better to do it this way. That Zhou is just an ordinary calamity. At most, he's at the Hellgrade. The 3 of us have the holy artifact, so what's there to be afraid of?" Old K said with a frown. "You can't say that. You haven't fought him before, so you don't know how powerful he is. I think it's better to be safe. 9 Suns has fought him before, so why don't we listen to what 9 Suns has to say?" Xiao said, "9 Suns, what do you think?" Old K looked at 9 Suns. "I can't see through him," 9 Suns said calmly. "Since that's the case, let's wait and see," Old K said after hearing 9 Suns' words. Zhou constantly shuttled through the lightning. Although he was barely able to avoid being devoured by the void true salamander, he was still constantly attacked by the lightning. However, Zhou discovered something very strange. There seemed to be something strange brewing within the teacher domain. Apex. Chapter 1605. The sure domain was unable to completely seal a perfect gray domain. A perfect gray domain would constantly leave behind traces within the sure domain. These traces were like a jigsaw puzzle. As the power within the sure domain changed, the jigsaw puzzle would become more and more complete. In the beginning, Zhou didn't feel much of it, but as the trajectories became more complete, Zhou realized that the trajectories seemed to be changing. After fighting the void true salamander for so long, Zhou had suffered countless lightning strikes. The trajectories that resembled a jigsaw puzzle were becoming more and more complete. The trajectories seemed to emit a certain rhythm. What will happen if I completely piece together the trajectories? Zhou had a vague feeling that this might be an opportunity. Zhou, when temporarily couldn't think of a way to break out of the encirclement, so he began attempting to piece together the trajectories. Powers sealed by the sure domain wouldn't leave trajectories in the sure domain. Only powers that couldn't be sealed would leave trajectories. However, for the same power, some trajectories would overlap while others wouldn't. Only those trajectories that didn't overlap would become a part of the puzzle. Overlapping trajectories were useless. What Zhou needed to do was to obtain more trajectories that didn't overlap, allowing all the trajectories to connect together to form a gigantic web. The same attack would often produce trajectories that repeated. Zhou had to try his best to let the sure domain come into contact with the other party's domain to obtain more trajectories. However, under the void, true salamander's attacks, it was already very difficult for Zhou to protect himself. It was extremely dangerous to make more contact with its domain. Old K and company had been paying attention to Zhou's battle with the void true salamander. Seeing that Zhou was about to risk his life against the void true salamander, Old K said, "Zhou has already begun fighting like a cornered beast. From the looks of it, we will soon be able to complete the mission." It should be soon. However, he was thinking inwardly. With Nine Yang and Old K here, it's probably impossible to secretly release Zhou. Is it worth exposing my identity for him? Xiao wasn't a hesitant person, but at that moment, he was somewhat hesitant. It was nearly impossible to infiltrate the Holy Land. If not for a fortuitous encounter, it would have been impossible for him to enter the Holy Land and become a holy disciple. It would be even more difficult to reach his status. If his identity was exposed, everything he had done would be for nothing. If this were any other time, Xiao wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice Zhou. However, upon recalling what Tianzhua had said to him, Xiao hesitated. Just as Xiao was hesitating, the battle seemed to change. Originally, the void true salamander had the absolute advantage. Its lightning powers enveloped Zhou, and under the bombardment of the lightning in the Chaos Egg's rift increased as though it was about to explode from the Chaos Egg. However, all of a sudden, the lightning domain emitted by the void real salamander seemed to be weakening, and the ocean-like lightning was also decreasing. Why is the lightning on the void true salamander's body decreasing? Asked Old K with a frown after noticing the situation. From the looks of it, Zhou is really going all out. This is the final radiance of the setting sun, Xiao said. Zhou Yang continued. The void true salamander's lightning isn't ordinary lightning. Rather than saying it's lightning, it's better to say that it's the collision of void powers. Even a sacred item might not be able to melt the void powers. Thankfully, we didn't participate. Otherwise, we might have been in danger facing Zhou's desperate struggle, Xiao said with a nod. Old K looked at Zhou and felt that what Xiao and Nine Yang said made sense, but he also felt that something was amiss. On the battlefield, Zhou had already pieced together the trajectories in the sure domain, forming a complete web. The moment the net was completed, the entire net's trajectory lit up, emitting a strange radiance. Of course, only Zhou could see this glow. It was a glow that only existed in the sure domain itself. As the trajectory emitted a glow, the trajectory also began to change, turning into strange characters. Zhou couldn't understand the characters, but he knew what they meant. They were the same as the text in the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder. The characters formed by the trajectory constantly flew towards the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder, gradually forming page after page of scripture. Void lightning technique. Zhou vaguely understood the true meaning of the characters and realized that it was a primordial energy art. As the trajectory turned into scripture, the sealing power of the lightning in the sure domain grew stronger. This also resulted in the situation that Old K and company saw. The lightning emitted by the void true salamander was constantly decreasing. The lightning hadn't been melted by Zhou, but the corresponding laws of the void lightning had been sealed by the power of the sure domain. In the beginning, Old K believed that this was Zhou's final desperate struggle, or that it was the final radiance of the setting sun. However, as more and more of the void lightning disappeared, and finally, large swathes of lightning vanished into thin air, Old K felt that something was amiss. Not good. That isn't Zhou final radiance of the setting sun. He has found a way to restrain the void lightning. Xiao exclaimed with a look of horror. But how is that possible? How can he, a human realm, restrain the power of a heaven realm? That fellow is indeed hard to fathom, Nanyang said in thought. Let's attack together. We can't give him any chances. We must bring the holy artifact back. As Old K spoke, he rushed into the battlefield. He held a scepter in his hand and pointed it at Zhou Wen, who was being pursued by the void true salamander. The tip of the scepter emitted a strange light. Wherever the light shone, Zhou Wen's sheer domain was greatly reduced. Xiao and Nanyang also rushed in together. Nanyang's body emitted a divine light as he threw a punch at Zhou Wen. The divine light exploded as though it was going to pierce through the universe. Xiao was like a ghost as he appeared behind the chaos egg. He slapped the chaos egg with his palm and sent it flying. A large number of solid crystals condensed within the chaos egg, and the void lightning scripture that appeared on the very high heavens opening scripture had also ended. Within the sure domain, all the void lightning power had been sealed. All the lightning had disappeared without a trace. Even the void, true salamander's body that was formed from lightning had turned into a body of flesh and blood. It was similar to the small void, true salamander that Zhou Wen had killed. It had white, jade-like scales and snow-white butterfly wings. Although its body was huge, its speed was shockingly fast. However, the power of the void lightning could not be released, so the void true salamander could only fight with its body. However, the void lightning power within its body was still circulating, but it could not be released. Its speed and power did not decline and was still extremely fierce. Chapter 1606. However, without the bombardment of the void lightning, Zhou Wen was much less restricted. Although there were 3 more people surrounding him, Zhou Wen felt that this was an opportunity. Bam! Zhao's palm struck the chaos egg. The power that was enough to distort space and tear apart time caused the chaos egg to deform. It flew out like an eggplant. Although the chaos egg flew towards Nine Sun's divine light of the sun, it also avoided the bite of the void true salamander. Nine Sun's fist was like a sun as it ruthlessly struck the chaos egg, sending Zhou Wen flying. Although the chaos egg flickered as though it would crack at any moment, it did not shatter. The scepter in Old K's hand ruthlessly smashed the chaos egg that was flying over, nearly breaking it in half. It looked like a gourd with a thin waist, but it did not break in the end. What Zhou Wen was most afraid of was being devoured by the void true salamander. Although the attacks of Old K and the other 2 were fierce, they had been filtered by the sure domain and the chaos egg. When they landed on his body, there was not much power left. Zhou Wen was wearing the dragon-enslaved armor, so he was almost unharmed. If not for protecting the demon infant in his arms, Zhou Wen would not have been injured. Old K, Xiao and Nine Sun's power could also leave traces in the sure domain. However, Zhou Wen did not have the time to piece together their traces. After all, he was being surrounded by 4 Heaven Realm experts. Zhou Wen's situation had become very bad. Old K and the other 2 had already deliberately avoided the void true salamander. However, since they wanted to attack Zhou Wen, it was impossible for them to completely avoid it. When Old K and the other 2 attacked the chaos egg from different directions, Zhou Wen suddenly retracted the sure domain. In the next instant, the extremely terrifying void lightning on the void true salamander's body appeared once again, instantly enveloping the few of them. The 3 who had been attacking Zhou Wen had no choice but to gather their strength to resist the void lightning. Boom! The trio's power collided with the void lightning. The collision of 4 Heaven Realm level powers produced a terrifying shockwave, forcibly tearing some cracks in Xiao and Old K's domain. Zhou Wen's senses were extremely sharp. He immediately sensed the existence of the cracks and didn't hesitate to seize the opportunity to rush out of the chaos egg. He brandished the golden flood dragon scissors in his hand and tore open a crack on the crack. He used interstellar teleportation to vanish. Damn it, Old K felt a toothache. Even under such circumstances, Zhou still managed to escape. The Void True Salamander was forced to retreat by the combined power of the trio. Its ferocious nature was also stimulated, and the lightning on its body surged, turning into a boundless sea of lightning that surged toward the trio. The Void Real Salamander can't be defeated by force. Let's go. Xiao retreated and disappeared into the void like a ghost. The 9 suns forcefully blasted apart the thunder explosion, opened up a passage, and rushed into the distance. Old K raised his scepter. There seemed to be an invisible energy protecting his body, but the lightning was still able to penetrate it, causing his hair to stand on end and smoke to rise from it. Fortunately, the scepter had already blocked most of the power. Such lightning wasn't enough to kill him. Thankfully, the Void Real Salamander didn't really want to fight them to the death. After spitting out the lightning, its body turned into a bolt of lightning and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Zhou had already teleported back to Earth, but he didn't go to Zhuolu. Instead, he went to the Holy Land. Zhou originally didn't plan on going to the Holy Land because it was useless there. Although the Holy Land was on Earth, one had to use a teleportation array to enter it. Other than that, he hadn't heard of any other way to enter the Holy Land. Therefore, even if Zhou went to the Holy Land, he couldn't bring the Void Real Salamander in. Even if he brought it in, it would be useless. The Holy Land was the only place on Earth that didn't have any rule suppressing it. There might be apocalypse-grade, dimensional creatures inside. Even if the Void Real Salamander entered, it wouldn't be able to cause any trouble. Therefore, Zhou didn't plan on going to the Holy Land in the beginning. However, the arrival and siege of Old K and company gave Zhou a new train of thought. Old K and company could ambush Zhou when outside the dimensional zone, so Zhou could similarly ambush the saints outside the Holy Land. Once dimensional creatures left the Holy Land, they would be suppressed by Earth's rules. Even an apocalypse-grade expert wouldn't easily leave the Holy Land. Therefore, the only creatures that could pose a threat to the Void Real Salamander were the saints with holy artifacts. However, those saints might not be the Void Real Salamander's match. Zhou could clearly sense that the Void Real Salamander was at the Heaven Realm. It was much stronger than the Heaven Realm powers produced by Xiao and Nine Yang's holy artifacts. So what if it's the Holy Land? They still have to pay the price if they want my life. Zhou teleported to the vicinity of the Holy Land and quickly felt the space tremble. Lightning appeared out of thin air and transformed into the Void Real Salamander's figure. Come on, big worm. When Zhou saw the Void Real Salamander appear, he immediately rushed towards the teleportation array at the Holy Land's entrance. In the past, it was guarded by the 6 families, but now it was guarded by the saints. Who dares barge into the Holy Land? There was a saint standing guard in all 4 directions. When they saw Zhou appear above the teleportation array, they immediately shouted in unison and prepared to attack. Before they could attack, they saw a snow-white light in the sky. A terrifying lightning sea descended and instantly electrocuted everything in the vicinity, including the 4 saints. Within a radius of 50 kilometers, everything turned into charcoal. The entire area turned into a huge scorched pit. The teleportation array in the center of the lightning remained standing. Although there were some charred areas, it wasn't destroyed. After Zhou's teacher domain condensed the void lightning technique, the seal on the void lightning had reached 100%. Zhou, who had retracted his teacher domain, only used it to protect the chaos egg. Other areas were constantly bombarded by lightning. Within a radius of 50 kilometers, the lightning surged like an ocean. Such a commotion had long attracted the attention of the Federation. The satellites in the sky had already captured the image of the lightning sea and the Void Real Salamander. Holy sh*T, isn't that the Egg Sovereign's Void Real Salamander? Why did it come to Earth? Isn't that the Holy Land? Holy sh*T, the Egg Sovereign is attacking the Holy Land. Quick, quick, quick live stream. This is an exclusive headline. Soon, everyone in the Federation watched the live stream in shock. They couldn't believe their eyes. The Egg Sovereign is attacking the Holy Land. Isn't this too ridiculous? It's inflated. The egg sovereign is really inflated. Although its companion beasts are very powerful, a place like the Holy Land isn't something that can be conquered with just one or two companion beasts. What's the difference between this and sending itself to death? Instantly, there was a flurry of discussion. Ordinary people believed that the egg sovereign was attacking the Holy Land, but the truly discerning bigwigs knew that Zhou was trying to draw trouble to the Holy Land. Chapter 16:07. The lightning sea was extremely terrifying, but Zhou realized that something wasn't right. Amidst the lightning, Zhou could directly sense that the void true salamander's lightning powers were weakening at a terrifying speed. The speed at which it weakened was much faster than Zhou imagined. According to this speed, it wouldn't take long for the void true salamander to fall to the hell stage or even the mortal stage. It might even fall to the terror stage. Zhou saw the void true salamander's body distort abnormally as though invisible steel needles were stabbing into its body, causing it to twist in pain. Even so, the void true salamander charged at Zhou with all its might, hoping to bite him to death. It was obvious how much it hated him. Earth's laws are too repressive towards creatures outside Earth. Zhou, who should have been happy, wasn't that happy. If this had happened in the past, Zhou would have been very happy, but now he wanted to use the void true salamander to block the Holy Land's entrance. If the void true salamander continued weakening, how could it block the entrance? Any random holy disciple with a holy artifact could kill the void real salamander. Such a void true salamander definitely didn't have the right to block the Holy Land's entrance. Zhou immediately made up his mind and used spatial teleportation to return to the cosmos. The void true salamander also rushed out of Earth and continued pursuing Zhou. After it left Earth, its body rapidly recovered as its lightning powers increased. Why is it gone? What's going on? I haven't had my fill yet. Why is it gone? I knew it. No matter how impressive the egg sovereign is, it's still far inferior to the Holy Land. So it was just a feint. It's already very impressive to dare fire a spear in front of the Holy Land. Immediately bring Old K and Nine Yang back. No matter what, we have to track Zhou. I want his life. The Saint God's eyes were cold. Ever since the Holy Land was established, no one had dared to do such a thing in front of the Holy Land. Zhou's actions were equivalent to stepping on the Holy Land's face. Although it didn't affect the Holy Land itself, the Holy Land's lofty status in the hearts of humans had been trampled on. Your Excellency, even if we bring Nine Yang and Old K back now, it won't be easy to track Zhou. Xiao Chan thought to himself, that brat really doesn't want to live anymore. He actually came to the Holy Land to cause trouble. Fortunately, he saw the opportunity early and ran fast enough. The holy deity naturally knew that it would be very difficult to trap Zhou. The last time she could trap him was when he came out of a dimensional zone. Now, it was almost impossible to trap him again. What puzzled the saint even more was that he had already tried several times to predict Zhou's whereabouts, but he failed to predict anything. It was as though everything about Zhou had nothing to do with this world. This was almost impossible. Any creature, as long as it lived in the universe, would definitely have a connection with the universe. If there was a connection, it would definitely be able to discover something through this connection. In this aspect, the Shang deity was an expert. However, he couldn't predict anything related to Zhou. He couldn't even sense Zhou's connection with the world. For such a situation to occur, typically, the other party's strength was far above the Shang deities. They could forcefully hide their connection with the world, preventing the Shang deity from prying into them. However, to be able to do this, one had to be an apocalyptic powerhouse. There was no such existence on Earth. It was clearly impossible for Zhou to be an apocalyptic powerhouse. Then, the most likely possibility was that he had something on him that blocked his connection with this world. After much thought, the anger in the Saint God's heart gradually subsided. She knew that Xiao was right. It was useless to get them to pursue Zhou now. It was better to set up a trap first. When the time came to close the net, Zhou would have nowhere to escape and could only submit to death. Boom! Just as the Sheng deity was thinking, he suddenly heard a loud rumble. Then, there was a series of thunderous booms. The Sheng deity and Xiao were stunned as they instantly realized what had happened. Through the spirit mirror, they looked at the Holy Land's entrance and saw that it was another sea of lightning. Zhou, who was protected by the Chaos Egg, was floating above the teleportation array. It was as though it was a replay. The Void True Salamander was using void lightning to constantly bombard the area near the teleportation array. That bastard! Xiao was shocked. He never expected that Zhou would dare to return. Now, Xiao was cursing inwardly. It hadn't been easy for him to dispel the Sheng deity's determination to pursue Zhou with all his might, but who knew that Zhou would do such a thing? It wasn't just Xiao. Many people watching the live stream believed that it was over. Even the live stream program was prepared to move elsewhere. Who knew that something like this would happen again? Heavens, the Egg Sovereign is back with that terrifying companion beast. What is he trying to do? Don't tell me he really wants to fight to the death with the Holy Land. He definitely won't fight to the death. If he did, he wouldn't have retreated just now. What do you know? This is the strategy of ancient great leaders. When the enemy advances, we retreat. When the enemy retreats, we advance. It's called guerrilla warfare. Everyone became excited again. They had mixed feelings about the Holy Land. In the beginning, humans treated the Holy Land as the true Holy Land in their hearts. But in this era, humans no longer had the faith they had in the Holy Land. They gradually realized that the Holy Land had always been enslaving humans and controlling the Federation. However, as the Holy Land had been suppressing humans for too long, few people dared to challenge the Holy Land's authority, even if they had faint animosity towards it. Zhou's current actions were equivalent to doing what countless humans wanted to do but didn't dare do. The sense of recognition was far more important than the outcome. Zhou encircled the cosmos with a void, true salamander. After it recovered, he lured it back to Earth. The void thunder of the void, true salamander continuously bombarded the teleportation array, causing it to be charred all over. Although it wasn't damaged, there were already some tiny cracks appearing. Zhou didn't linger on the battle. Moments later, he returned to the cosmos and lured the void, true salamander, whose strength was being restrained, back. Zhou, the Sheng deity's eyes were extremely cold, as though they were about to emit a cold aura. Boom! In the next second, Zhou and the void, true salamander appeared once again as lightning enveloped the Holy Land's entrance. Kacha! Cracks started to appear on the incomparably tough and almost indestructible transportation array under the bombardment of the void lightning. Bring Old K and Nanyang back immediately. The Sheng deity's voice seemed to be squeezed out from between her teeth. Chapter 1608. Yes. Xiao accepted the order and left the Holy Land to bring Nanyang and Old K back. Xiao, who had the power of the trajectory Holy Temple, was adept at spatial travel. However, Nanyang and Old K weren't adept at such powers. After the Big Dipper scattered, they didn't immediately return. Before Xiao left Earth, he glanced at Zhou and the Void Salamander, who had returned to Earth. He thought to himself, Zhou's actions might be an opportunity. With his thought in mind, Xiao had already used spatial travel to return to the Big Dipper region to search for Nanyang and Old K, who had scattered. At present, the three of them were the only humans left in the Holy Land who could use holy artifacts. Although there were existences stronger than them in the Holy Land, they weren't humans and couldn't leave the Holy Land to fight. Xiao, what's wrong with you? Why did you abandon us? Old K said angrily when he saw Xiao. I just wanted to try and see if I could catch up to Zhou. Perhaps I could trap him again, Xiao explained. What happened in the end? Old K asked. Xiao shrugged and said, Naturally, I couldn't catch up. Therefore, I made a trip back to the Holy Land and reported the situation to the Holy God. Humph, what's the point? Old K snorted coldly. It's indeed useless. But Zhou delivered himself to our doorstep, Xiao said unhurriedly. What do you mean? Old K frowned. Xiao recounted the matter of Zhou when leading the void, true salamander to attack the Holy Land's teleportation array before saying, cut the crap. We don't have time to waste. We have to quickly find 9 suns and return to stop Zhou. Otherwise, if the teleportation array is destroyed, it will be very troublesome to enter and exit the Holy Land in the future. He refused to take the path to heaven and came to hell. I won't give him any chances this time, Old K said coldly. Wait for me here. I'll find 9 Yang first before coming back to bring you back. With that said, Zhao's figure flashed and vanished. Zhou returned to the Holy Land with the void salamander once again. The void lightning followed closely behind, causing the teleportation array to crackle. The foundation of the teleportation array had already cracked, and gravel was constantly being crushed by the lightning. If this continued for a while, perhaps the entire teleportation array would collapse. It was a pity that the void true salamander was suppressed by Earth's rules too much. Each time, it could only stay for tens of seconds at most. As time passed, its power would drop drastically. The weakened void thunder and lightning could not harm the foundation of the teleportation array at all. Zhou lured the void true salamander to destroy the teleportation array again and again because he realized that only the void true salamander's void lightning could destroy the foundation of the teleportation array. Even the golden flood dragon scissors could not damage the teleportation formation. This didn't mean that the destructive power of the golden flood dragon scissors wasn't strong. The golden flood dragon scissors could tear apart cornerstones, but those cornerstones would automatically recover. Cornerstones that were destroyed by void thunder and lightning were truly broken and wouldn't recover. The power of the void true salamander seemed to be lightning, but on a deeper level, it was the power of the void. It was not an ordinary electric current power, which was why it could destroy the foundation of the teleportation formation. All Zhou wanted to do now was blow up the teleportation array so that it would be difficult for the saints of the Holy Land to come out. In the future, it would be very difficult to plunder resources from outside the Holy Land and send them back to the Holy Land. Even if the Holy Land had other ways out, he could at least vent his anger. The Egg Sovereign is going to blow up the Holy Land's entrance. If the teleportation array is really destroyed, will the saints in the Holy Land and the dimensional creatures in the temple never be able to come out? The Egg Sovereign is going against the heavens. After bombing the Holy Land's entrance for so long, not a single saint dares to come out. The Holy Land doesn't look as terrifying as I imagined. They don't even dare make a sound with the Egg Sovereign doing this. The void true salamander is just too powerful. The Egg Sovereign hasn't released the Tiger Soul General yet. Although Zhou couldn't do anything to the Holy Land, he had slowly wiped away the lofty image and fear that the Holy Land had left in the hearts of humans over the years. This fellow, Zhou, isn't slapping the Holy Land in the face, but smashing their mouths, Xiao Luchuan said excitedly. I'm just afraid that if he doesn't leave now, it'll be too late. Zhang Chunxiu wasn't that optimistic. He knew a little about the Holy Land's power. After all, the 6 families had once served the Holy Land, so they knew a little about the Holy Land. Should we do something? Xiao Luchuan asked Zhang Chunxiu. Zhang Chunxiu pondered for a moment before nodding. Let's make some preparations in advance. We might be able to help Zhou at the critical moment. If Zhou can really destroy the Holy Land's teleportation array, it'll be a good thing for us. What else are we preparing for? Haven't we been preparing for this all these years? Xiao Youchuan's eyes burned with passion. The 6 families had been silent for so long. They had been digesting the resources brought to them by the rapid changes in this world. Don't act recklessly. Our current strength isn't enough to fight the Holy Land head-on. We just need to help Zhou when needed. Zhang Chunxiu glared at Xiao Luchuan. He had the best relationship with Xiao Luchuan and Dugugu. Among the 3 of them, Dugugu was the most self-centered. He was relatively calm and reserved, while Xiao Luchuan was the most radical. When on the verge of death, he could often unleash unimaginable potential. However, It was also because of his personality that he always liked to do radical things. Only Zhang Chunxiu could hold Xia Luchuan back. When can we fight those fellows head-on? Xia Luchuan said gloomily. When can you block the Holy Land's entrance like Zhou Wen? When no one dares to come out, Zhang Chunxiu said. I'll go prepare, Xia Luchuan said as he turned around and left. Xia Luchuan knew that he couldn't block the Holy Land's entrance. He wasn't afraid of those saints. Even if they were existences like Shao and Nine Yang, he was confident in fighting them. However, those saints had holy artifacts in their hands. It wasn't something that humans could obtain. All of you buck up. Xia Luchuan gathered all the mythical liquid experts that the Xia family had secretly nurtured over the past few years. When ordinary people used mythical liquid, they would use whatever mythical liquid was the strongest and most compatible with them. However, the Xia family was different. The members of the Xia family would categorize people with different talents and then use the mythical liquid they had chosen. When they advanced to the mythical stage, they didn't use whatever mythical liquid they liked. Instead, they used whatever the Xia family needed. It seemed like a huge sacrifice. Many Xia family members didn't bring out their talent to its fullest, nor did they use the most compatible mythical liquid. However, when the Xia family members were together, the power they unleashed was far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Chapter 1609. Why is this teleportation array so sturdy? Zhou Wen had already bombarded it 7 or 8 times with the void true salamander, but only a portion of the teleportation array's foundation had been destroyed. The main body was still there. When Zhou Wen returned to the Holy Land again, he immediately realized that something was amiss. The moment he appeared, the surrounding space distorted, and a strange domain power enveloped him. Old K, Nine Yang, and Shao appeared not far away. Zhou Wen immediately realized what had happened. However, since Zhou Wen dared to come, he had already thought of a way to deal with it. He wasn't surprised. How dare you destroy the Holy Land's teleportation array? Zhou Wen, you will definitely die today. Old K raised the scepter in his hand and stared at Zhou Wen coldly. Unfortunately, the satellite could capture images, but it was difficult to collect sounds from so far away. The people watching the live broadcast didn't hear what Old K said. They only knew that someone had finally appeared in the Holy Land. That's Nine Yang. The other 2 saints don't seem to be below Nine Yang. Their strength shouldn't be too far off, right? One Nine Yang won't be much weaker than the Egg Emperor. Now that 3 have appeared, the Egg Emperor is in danger. That might not be the case. The Egg Emperor's Tiger Soul General hasn't been released yet. It's hard to say who's stronger. Everyone discussed. Su Yi and Professor Gu were also explaining. Su Yi asked, Professor Gu, a saint has finally appeared. What do you think the Egg Emperor's chances of winning are? Professor Gu cleared his throat and said, from the previous battle, the difference in strength between 9 Suns and the Egg Emperor is not that great. If the other 2 holy disciples are not weaker than 9 Suns, the Egg Emperor will be in danger this time. Professor Gu said that the Egg Emperor is in danger. This time, the Egg Emperor should be safe. I was worried about the Egg Emperor just now. After listening to Professor Gu's analysis, I feel much more at ease now. Didn't we agree not to shake the weapon of mass destruction? Professor Gu? Why do they use it now? Those saints are really unlucky. The bullet screen was immediately filled with auspicious signs. When Professor Gu saw the bullet screen, his old face turned extremely ugly. From the battle, just now, the Egg Emperor should be proficient in spatial teleportation. It shouldn't be that easy for those saints to besiege it, right? Su Yi said. Professor Gu said expressionlessly. From a professional point of view, it is impossible for the Holy Land not to know that the Egg Queen is good at teleportation. Since they sent the holy disciples out, they must have already thought of a solution. If Zhou Wen retreats now, he might still have a chance to escape. I'm afraid it'll be too late. It's stable, it's stable. Professor Gu has healed it twice in a row. The Egg Emperor is going to be invincible. With your words, I think the Holy Land has already lost. Below, there was another wave of auspicious bullet screen. Professor Gu's face alternated between green and white as he watched. He was so angry that he simply stopped talking. In fact, every time his analysis was not completely unreasonable. In fact, there was some basis to it. He was not just talking nonsense. As a result, he was ridiculed by the netizens, which made Professor Gu very embarrassed. Zhou felt that it was a pity. Although he had already thought of a way to break out of Old K in Zhao's domain, he could only escape. He couldn't continue bombarding the teleportation array. I'll come again next time. Zhou felt a little depressed. Just as he was about to rush out, he suddenly heard a voice not far away. Do holy disciples like to bully others with numbers? A three-sail ship flew over from the distant sky. On the bow of the ship sat a man. The man was draped in a white robe and hugged an ancient sword. He sat casually at the bow of the ship, holding the ancient sword in one hand and a small teapot in the other. He took a sip after speaking. His white robe fluttered in the wind, and there was a black character printed on his back. It's ya. Why is he here? Although the people watching the live stream couldn't hear what you was saying, they recognized him at a glance. You shouldn't have any feud with the Egg Queen, right? He won't help those holy disciples, right? You hates guardians the most. How can he help the Holy Land? He's definitely here to help the Egg Queen. There seems to be someone over there. On the other side of the screen, there seemed to be something approaching. Quick, look over there. It looks like immortal. The scene changed a little. Indeed, on the other side, a person was riding the wind. He stepped on the void as though he was stepping on invisible stairs. He walked very slowly, but in the blink of an eye, he had already arrived near the battlefield. It was none other than the League of Defenders Immortal. Why is Immortal here? The League of Defender is a lackey of the dimension. He must be here to help those holy disciples kill the Egg Queen. I originally thought that the Egg Queen might have a chance of survival with Ya's help. I never expected the League of Defenders Immortal to come as well. They should be mortal enemies, right? Just as everyone was discussing, they saw Ya carry the ancient sword on his shoulder and leap up. He tore through the air and charged into the domain. He stood in front of Old K and company and said indifferently, Junior brother, leave these three to me. Continue doing what you want to do. When you said this, he used a special power that made his voice louder than the lightning in the void. Even the program crew, who were filming hundreds of kilometers away, could hear his voice. The people watching the live stream were in an uproar when they heard that. Holy *T, the Egg Queen, is actually Ya's junior brother. So he's from the Holy Spirit Society. Is the Holy Spirit Society so strong now? Ya's junior brother is already so powerful. Then how strong is he now? Courting death. Old K's expression darkened as he pointed the scepter in his hand. Immediately, it transformed into a terrifying ripple that swept towards Ya like a huge wave. Before he could take action, he saw a petal fall. Wherever the petal passed, the huge wave instantly vanished. Immortal walked over step by step with a flower in his fingers. The petal had withered from the flower. Holy *T, what's going on? Is Immortal here to help the Egg Queen? What's going on? Aren't the League of Defender and those fellows from the Holy Land in cahoots? Immortal, do you know what you're doing? Don't think that you can be impudent here just because Immortal is backing you. Old K said coldly as he stared at Immortal. Of course I know what I'm doing. I don't want to interfere in your matters, but who asked you to harm my junior brother? Immortal said indifferently. Immortal's words also used some special power. Although his voice was gentle, it was extremely clear amid the rumbling thunder. People in the distance could hear it clearly. It can't be. Is Immortal also the Egg Queen's senior brother? That doesn't make sense. Aren't Immortal and Immortal enemies? How can the Egg Queen be their junior brother at the same time? There must be a mistake somewhere. Everyone's mouths were wide open. They immediately thought that their ears were damaged. They must have heard wrongly or were hallucinating. Chapter 16:10. So what if it's Xian and Ya? In the dual domains of orbit and imperial power, no matter how many people come, they will still be trapped here. Old K snorted disdainfully. The imperial power domain restricted a person's body, while the trajectory domain restricted space. Under the dual domains, even someone like Zhou, one who was good at spatial powers, couldn't break through. Of course, this was also because Zhou's spatial abilities hadn't reached the calamity grade. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so passive. Although Ye and Xian were very strong, it was also difficult for them to break through the dual domains. Even if they entered the battlefield, they would still be trapped here. The petals of the flower in Xian's hand withered and flew towards Old K and the other two. However, those petals seemed to have fallen into a maze. They were clearly flying towards Old K and the others, but halfway through, they strangely appeared in different directions, flying in circles, unable to get close to Old K and the others. You pulled out Primordial Immortal Sword and slashed at Old K. The blazing sword beam was clearly heading straight for Xiao, but it strangely turned into an arc and turned in another direction. I've said it before, no matter how many people come, it's useless. The power of the Holy Land isn't something you mortals can hope to match. Old K sneered. The power of the Holy Land might not be that amazing, but I, a mere mortal, want to give it a try. A voice suddenly rang out. Along with that voice, a figure appeared in the battlefield. F***CK, who's that show-off? Seeing that person's appearance, some of the audience couldn't help but shout. The person who came was wearing a white shirt and a tuxedo, a hat on his head, a monocle on his face, and a cane in his hand. His appearance did not look like he was here to fight, no matter how one looked at it. He looked like a flashy young man who had snuck into a banquet of the upper class to flirt with girls. You don't even know him? He is the Holy Thief, who is as famous as the King of Thieves. Holy Thief looks like this? My youth is gone. Why is Holy Pirate here all of a sudden? Is he related to the Egg Queen? Just as everyone was guessing, they heard Lu Yun say in all seriousness, "Junior brothers, don't worry. With your eldest senior brother here, a mere spatial domain is nothing." Lu Yun deliberately spread his voice. Once his words were broadcasted online, it immediately caused a huge uproar. Holy Pirate is the Egg Sovereign's big senior brother? Really? It can't be, right? These people are actually fellow disciples? F***CK, this is 2 F***King Big. Xian and you have always been enemies, and Holy Pirate has always been a loner. Are they brothers? Then were all those things you did in the past just an act? So what if we're fellow disciples? As fellow students who have graduated from the academy, how many times have they fought to the death on the battlefield? Yes, it is not a big deal to be a brother, but to be able to make people like Ye, Xian, and Holy Pirate come out and become the Holy Land's enemy, I am getting more and more curious about who the Egg King is. The Egg Emperor's popularity is really good. What do you mean by popular? She's just a social butterfly. As everyone discussed, Lu Yun summoned a strange companion beast. It looked like an ancient mirror, but it wasn't flat. In the middle of the object was a Tai Chi pattern, surrounded by 8 trigrams, 7 stars, 5 elements, and other patterns. The Tai Chi pattern was constantly rotating, and the 8 trigrams were constantly changing, forming a 3-dimensional image. Lu Yun held the strange item in his hand as his essence energy circulated. The surrounding distorted space immediately returned to normal. Zhao's spatial domain seemed to lose its effect. No good. Kill Holy Pirate first. Old K's expression changed as he pointed the scepter at Lu Yun. A petal floated down and landed on his scepter, forcefully suppressing it. Xian's figure also appeared in front of Old K, yet also blocked the 9 suns that were charging over. You are also an expert at playing with space. From the looks of it, we will have to decide who's stronger. Lu Yun faced Xiao and raised the strange companion beast in front of him. That's a Tai Chi pattern, right? Xiao asked as he sized up the strange companion beast in Lu Yun's hand. You do have some knowledge. You know that this is a Tai Chi pattern. Since you know the Tai Chi pattern, why aren't you escaping? On account of your good eyesight, I'll let you live. Lu Yun held the Tai Chi pattern in his hand as though he was number 1 in the world. What a pity. That's only a calamity grade Tai Chi pattern. It hasn't even reached the Heaven Realm stage. It's only a hell grade companion beast. To be able to fight my heaven-grade trajectory domain at the hell-grade, it indeed lives up to its reputation. Unfortunately, it entrusted it to the wrong person. What a pity, Xiao said. You aren't F***king human. Lu Yin suddenly raised the Tai Chi pattern in his hand and shone it in Zhao's direction. The space in front of him immediately distorted. Xiao took a step forward and strangely vanished, but he appeared behind Lu Yin. His fingertips slashed at the back of Lu Yun's neck like a blade. Lu Yun's pupils constricted as his body instantly teleported away. However, a long wound had already appeared on the back of his neck. Blood dyed his white shirt red. You are still far from it, Xiao said indifferently as he moved his feet as though he was taking a stroll. His figure strangely appeared in different directions. One step ago, he was in front of Lu Yin. With another step, he was already behind him. With the next step, he appeared on Lu Yun's left. Lu Yin constantly teleported. At the same time, he wanted to use the Tai Chi pattern to put away Xiao, but he was unable to lock onto Zhao's location. On the other side, Old K and Immortal, 9 sons, and you began fighting. When Zhou saw that they had blocked Old K and company and that the spatial domain had been removed, he teleported into the cosmos with the Void True Salamander. Only the Void True Salamander's strength could shatter the teleportation array's foundation. It was highly likely that Ye and Immortal were willing to come here to help Zhou destroy the teleportation array. Boom! Boom! Zhou lured the Void True Salamander and bombarded the teleportation array's foundation again and again. On the other side, the battle had already reached a ferocious stage. Lu Yin was almost one-sidedly tortured by Xiao. His gown was already in tatters, and his white shirt was dyed blood red. If it wasn't for the Tai Chi pattern in hand that made Xiao fear him, he would have long been killed. Xian and Ye's situation wasn't very optimistic either. They clearly hadn't reached the heaven realm, so they were at a disadvantage in the battle. Xian's situation was slightly better. He was a double guardian. Although he hadn't reached the heaven realm, his strength and speed weren't too far off. For the time being, he could still deal with Old K and hold him back, preventing him from escaping. His situation wasn't looking good. His sword was too crazy and persistent, and 9 Sons was also a model for head-on battles. The battle between the two of them was a head-on clash. Ye's sword became faster and crazier, but when facing 9 Sons, he was suppressed time and time again. His strength and speed were inferior. Blood seeped out of the corner of Ye's mouth. The webbing between his thumb and forefinger had already ruptured, but he had no intention of stopping or dodging. Chapter 16:11. The sun is the source of life. All living beings are born from the power of the sun. No matter how strong you are, you can't be an enemy of the sun because your strength originates from the sun. Nine Yang's palm strikes suppressed Zhongzia, making him almost unable to slash out with his sword. So what if I'm born from the sun? Does it mean that the child must be inferior to the parents? Tempered steel is born from iron ore, but when forged into a sword, it can cut iron like mud. Ignoring the fact that the sun might not be the source of all life, even if it is, I will defy the heavens and slay the source. Zhongzia's gaze was like a sword as sword intent constantly erupted from his body. The sword beam of the primordial immortal sword in his hand became stronger. Good idea. You're quite ambitious, but unfortunately, you lack some flavor. Nine Yang's palms were like the palms of Irokana. No matter how powerful Zhongzia's sword force was, it was suppressed. The sword beam was suppressed by the palm force that resembled the sun and shattered like glass. The sword in Zhongzia's hand was pressed down inch by inch as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Bam! Zhongzia's entire body was crushed by Nine Yang's palm force. Everyone was alarmed, but in the blink of an eye, Zhongzia's figure appeared on the other side with primordial immortal sword in his arms. There were no injuries on his body, as though everything that had happened was just an illusion. What flavor do you want? Sour, sweet, bitter, spicy, or salty? As Zhongzia spoke, his body moved, leaving behind one afterimage after another. No, it shouldn't be called an afterimage. It was identical to Zhong Ziya's actual body. It was impossible to tell which one was the real Zhong Ziya. The 5 replicas of Zhong Ziya drew their swords and charged at Nine Yang. Sword beams crisscrossed, each more ferocious and ruthless than the last. Nine Yang's palms opened and closed, forcefully blocking the 5 Zhong Ziya's attacks. The 5 Zhong Ziya were clearly not as simple as an illusion. Their strength was real and identical to Zhong Ziya's actual body. It was impossible to tell which one was Zhong Ziya's actual body. A piece of work that doesn't look good is worthless no matter how many times you replicate it. Nine Sons only used a pair of hands. It was a move so simple that anyone could understand, but it still suppressed Zhong Ziya. One after another, Nine Sons shattered Zhong Ziya's avatars into pieces. Replicated works are indeed worthless, but practicing paintings are different. Perhaps in your eyes, every painting is extremely ugly, but no matter how great a painting is, it's built on this unbearable ugliness. Zhong Ziya's figure swayed, and clones appeared like ghosts, charging at the 9 Sons from different corners. That depends on who the painter is. Not everyone has the potential to become a master. Do you have it? Zhu Yang asked calmly. I don't. I only know how to kill. The ghost-like Zhong Ziya answered in unison. Layers of sword light overlapped and crisscrossed like a net, enveloping the 9 Sons from all directions. That's why I said you're still lacking a taste. The 9 Sons stood like Buddha. They raised their palms, and like the rising sun, they completely melted the sword light. Elsewhere, the battle between Immortal and Old K continued. The scepter in Old K's hand released the power of the imperial power again and again in a bid to restrain Immortal's body. However, Immortal's movement technique was ethereal. The power of the imperial power ultimately failed to restrain his body. Jiang Yin didn't seem to have any intention of killing Old K. All he did was casually circle Old K's side. If Old K didn't attack, he felt that Jiang Yin would seize his weakness and deliver a fatal blow. If he attacked, he wouldn't be able to do anything to Jiang Yin. He would be held back by Jiang Yin, making it difficult for him to care about anything else. The most tragic one was Lu Yun. He clearly hadn't reached the same level as Xiao, and they both had spatial powers. He was practically being toyed with by Xiao. It was only with the deterrence of the Taiji symbol that he could barely last until now. His clothes were almost drenched in blood, but for some reason, he didn't use any armor-type companion beasts, nor did he summon a guardian. Holy SH*T, eldest senior brother, Holy Pirate, is too tragic. Eldest senior brother, run. The people watching the live stream couldn't see the details of the battle, but they saw Lu Yun pause for a moment just as he teleported. Zhao's figure slid past Lu Yun like a ghost, causing new wounds to appear on Lu Yun's body. Your spatial abilities are too poor. If that's considered spatial powers, then your space is at most a child's model world, Xiao said contemptuously as he left another wound on Lu Yun's body. Lu Yun waved the Taiji symbol in his hand and shone it in the direction of Zhao's voice, but there was no sign of Xiao. Xiao, ignore that fellow. Stop Zhou first. We can't let him destroy the teleportation array again. Old K's voice sounded. All right, Xiao replied and vanished with a step. He dodged the power of the Taiji symbol and headed for the teleportation array. However, Lu Yun's figure had teleported in front of Xiao and thrown the Taiji symbol at him. The Taiji symbol emitted a strange power in the air, engulfing everything around it as though it wanted to devour space. Zhao's figure flashed and dodged the Taiji symbol's sweep. However, at the instant Xiao dodged, Lu Yun teleported in front of him and smashed his hand at Zhao's face. Bam! Xiao and Lu Yun crossed paths. Lu Yun's fist missed and slid past Zhao's cheek. As for Zhao's palm, it penetrated Lu Yun's chest and pierced his heart. You shouldn't have made me your enemy. Xiao flung the blood off his palm and turned to head for the teleportation array. Eldest senior brother. Upon seeing this scene, the people in front of the live stream couldn't help but cry out. Some emotional women covered their mouths with their hands as tears welled up in their eyes. However, in the next second, Lu Yun's gown and shirt shattered and turned to ashes, revealing his naked body. However, there were no injuries on his body at all. Clearly, the gown was a special companion beast that had borne Lu Yun's previous injuries. It's not a big deal to be your enemy. Lu Yun stretched out his left hand, and between the fingers of his left hand, there was a ring made of thin threads. The power on Zhao's body rapidly dissipated, and soon it fell to the hell stage. It was as though he had lost some kind of augmentation. You're very good. Zhao's pupils constricted slightly as he turned around and looked at the ring in Lu Yun's hand. Although I'm not your match, don't forget that my nickname is Saint Thief. Lu Yun held the ring in one hand and the Taiji symbol in the other. He said smugly, without the holy artifact, you're just at the hell stage. Why do you have to act superior in front of me? Chapter 16:12. Whether you have a holy artifact or not has nothing to do with superiority. Zhao's figure swayed like a ghost as he suddenly appeared in front of Lu Yun. His nose was almost touching Lu Yun's nose. Lu Yun was alarmed. It was too late for him to teleport. He didn't have the chance to retract the Taiji symbol that had released its power in another direction. Bam! Zhao's fist struck Lu Yun's abdomen. Lu Yun's body immediately bent as he flew backward like a shrimp. Thankfully, he was already wearing a companion beast armor. The armor looked like it had high defense, so Zhao's punch only shattered the armor at his abdomen. Before Lu Yun could stop flying backward, Zhao had already flashed above his head. His leg was like a saber as he cleaved at Lu Yun's head. Lu Yun tried his best to control his body as he waved his hand to shine the sun picture at Zhao. However, in the next second, Lu Yun was shocked to discover that Zhao, who had clearly cleaved down with his leg, seemed to have a spatial distortion. The Taiji painting shone in the air, and Zhao's leg landed on his chest. It shattered the armor on Lu Yun's chest, and the bones in his chest seemed to crack. His body was slashed down and smashed heavily into the ground. Lu Yun's body created a huge crater in the soil and rocks. Rocks were still flying everywhere, and before Lu Yun's body could stop sinking, Zhao's figure appeared in front of him again. Zhao's knee struck his face. Lu Yun finally reacted. The moment the knee hit his nose, he teleported into the sky. The rocks on the ground exploded from the impact of Zhao's knee. It was like a meteorite crashing into a planet. However, before Lu Yun could heave a sigh of relief, Zhao's figure appeared behind him like a ghost. Lu Yun waved the Taiji symbol with one hand and grabbed at Zhao with the other. However, just as he made a move, Zhao's figure turned around and circled in front of him. With a backhand punch, he smashed Lu Yun's face. Fragments of his helmet flew everywhere as Lu Yun's face distorted. He flew out diagonally. Eldest senior brother sure is tragic. The people watching the battle couldn't see the battle clearly at all, but after the program team played the slow-motion analysis, everyone had the same thought in their minds. Zhao was like an omnipotent demon god, beating up Lu Yun in a frenzy. Fortunately, Flowing Cloud had stolen Desolate's holy relic, causing his strength to remain at hell grade. Flowing Cloud's armor was also very powerful, so he had not been beaten to death. That guy. And Tianzua couldn't help but shake his head with a bitter smile when he saw Xiao Bao beating up Lu Yun. That Xiao is so strong. Xiao Youchuan's expression was solemn. He had always felt that the so-called saints were just people who had obtained dimensional resources and were augmented by holy artifacts. At the same level, Xiao Luchuan didn't believe that he would lose to any saint. However, Nine Yang and Old K's performance was already surprising. Xiao was even more sick. Even at the same level, Xiao Luchuan wasn't confident of defeating Xiao. Thankfully, he didn't think much of Lu Yun in the beginning. Otherwise, Lu Yun would have died long ago. He wouldn't have had the chance to steal his holy artifact. Zhang Chunxiu also had a solemn expression. Should we attack? Xiao Luchuan asked. It's too late. Now, we can only hope that Zhou Wen quickly destroys the teleportation array. Otherwise, even if we help, we won't be able to resolve the actual problem. Zhang Chunxiu had been paying attention to the situation at the teleportation array. Under the repeated bombardment of the void lightning, the black pillar-like foundation of the teleportation array was already covered in tiny cracks. It looked like it could collapse at any moment. Quickly shatter. Zhou landed with the void true salamander once again and watched the void lightning strike the teleportation array. Although the foundation pillar was already covered in cracks, it didn't really collapse. Only a little of its surface had shattered. He didn't care, but Lu Yin couldn't hold on any longer. He was about to be beaten into a pig's head. It was only because he had the Taiji painting that he could barely deal with Xiao. Every time he swept the Taiji painting at Xiao, Xiao wouldn't be able to kill him in time. Even so, Lu Yin couldn't hold on much longer. If this continued, he might really die here. He's still too naive. Does he really think that the Holy Land's teleportation array can be destroyed so easily? Although the void lightning can injure the teleportation formation, it is not so easy to destroy it. It will require at least a dozen strikes of the void real salamander's full power to be able to cause the foundation to collapse. The Sheng deity laughed coldly. However, Zhou doesn't have much time. At most, he will have 3 more strikes from the void true salamander. Xiao should be able to finish off that human. As long as the Taiji painting in that human's hand loses its effect, everyone will die here. The saint deity glanced at Xiao, who was wreaking havoc on Lu Yun, and was somewhat surprised. I never expected Zhao's abilities to have reached such a level. His abilities and realm have far exceeded his level. Among the 3 holy sons, his combat strength is the best. Even Nine Yang, who has reached the heaven realm, is probably not his match. He's just a little too arrogant, but he does have a right to be arrogant. The saint deity actually felt somewhat smug as she looked at Xiao. After all, he had personally nurtured Xiao. If he hadn't brought Xiao to the Lake of Vexation, allowing Xiao to use the power of the Lake of Vexation to advance, providing Xiao with large amounts of dimensional resources, and recommending him to wield the holy artifact of the trajectory, Holy Temple, Xiao wouldn't have grown so rapidly. The greater Zhao's achievements were, the more glory it was for the saint deity. Of course, Xiao didn't obtain all of this for no reason. The saint deity had brought him into the Lake of Vexation and allowed him to use the power of the Lake of Vexation to advance only so that Xiao could capture the former principle. The resources and holy artifacts that followed were given special treatment because Xiao had brought back the former principle. However, Zhao's growth had exceeded the saint deity's expectations. Shatter. Zhou descended with the void true salamander once again and couldn't help but roar. This was because Lu Yun couldn't hold on any longer and was about to be beaten to death. If he couldn't destroy the teleportation array this time, Zhou could only give up on the idea of destroying it and turn to help Lu Yun. Once Lu Yun died, the Taiji painting would lose its effect. Xian and you would be trapped here, and the void true salamander wouldn't be able to leave either. In the end, he still couldn't destroy the teleportation array. Instead, it would be worse. Sometimes one had to make a choice. Therefore, this was Zhou Wen's last attempt. He strongly hoped that he could destroy the teleportation array's foundation. Zhou Wen's roar was too loud due to his emotions. It was picked up by the live stream, and everyone watching heard the roar. They seemed to be infected by Zhou Wen's emotions. Many people subconsciously clenched their fists and prayed inwardly, hoping that the lightning would fulfill the Egg Sovereign's wish and shatter the teleportation array's foundation. Shatter. Many people tried their best to muster their strength, wishing they could punch the foundation. Humans just like to place their hopes on unrealistic things. They think that they can solve all problems with their emotions. What a joke. The saint deity knew very well that it was impossible for the void lightning to destroy the teleportation array's foundation. Boom! At the instant the void lightning descended, an aurora that resembled a volcanic eruption tore through the sky. Almost at the same time as the void lightning, it struck the teleportation array's foundation. Chapter 16:13. Shatter. Following Zhou Wen's roar, the lightning struck down. At the same time, a beam of light pierced through the sky. The time and node were just right to resonate with Zhou Wen's roar, as though it was responding to Zhou Wen's miracle. Boom! The void lightning struck the foundation of the teleportation array. The lightning flowed through the cracks, and the foundation looked like a stone pillar covered in lightning cracks. Although it looked like it was about to shatter, it did not crack open. However, with Zhou Wen's voice, the beam that streaked across the sky struck the foundation stone. The foundation stone pillar, which had been corroded by the lightning and was covered in cracks, suddenly exploded after a moment of preparation. Light and lightning spewed out from within as though a huge lightning firework had exploded. Boom! The huge foundation pillar of the teleportation array was like a building that had collapsed from an explosion. The entire foundation pillar shattered into pieces and collapsed with a loud bang. The terrifying tremors could be felt within a radius of 1,000 miles. For a few hundred miles near the teleportation array, it was like an earthquake. The ground churned like waves, and fissures split open on the ground, crisscrossing like a huge spider web. The land, which had long been barren, instantly turned into a wasteland. Looking at the shattered foundation pillar, everyone's mouth gaped. There was excitement, anger, doubt, and even more shock. The Shang god stared at Zhou Wen, his lips pursed. He did not make a sound, but the coldness in his eyes was chilling. What was that beam of light just now? Could it be that the gods heard the Egg Emperor's voice and responded with a miracle? This is a miracle from the heavens. Could it be that I, the Egg Emperor, am chosen by the heavens? Even the heavens are helping him. Ordinary people could not imagine what kind of creature could produce such a powerful beam of light. They all thought it was a miracle. As for the various factions that paid more attention to the Yin family, they had already guessed what that beam of light was. Back then, the Yin family had destroyed the sky-reaching tower with a cannon, shocking the entire Federation. However, since then, the Yin family had never used that terrifying weapon again. After such a long time, just as the forgetful humans were about to forget about that terrifying weapon, it once again showed its ferocity today. The impact it produced was far more direct than the last time. The Void Reel Salamander was so powerful, yet it had not been able to destroy the foundation stone pillar, even after so many times of bombardment. However, this cannon strike had directly shattered the foundation stone pillar. With such a strong opponent, the shock to his soul was incomparable to the previous time. Even now, many people were still in a daze. This shot was too shocking. In fact, this shot was not as terrifying as people thought it would be. The void thunder and lightning had almost destroyed the cornerstone pillar, and the inside was already full of cracks. It only lacked the last bit of strength. It was like the last straw that broke the camel's back. Without this straw, the camel could still hold on for a while, but with this straw, the camel would immediately collapse. Of course, this was just a metaphor. The effect of this cannon was far more powerful than a straw. Its destructive power was not inferior to that of the void lightning. Only by combining it with the void lightning could it produce such an effect. Both were indispensable. On a mountain a few hundred kilometers away from the Holy Land, and Shang was instructing people to dismantle the primordial energy compression accelerator and bring it back. And Shang had no idea how this thing had been obtained. Sometime before Old K and company appeared, the accelerator was still in the Yin family in Luoyang. To bring such a huge accelerator here in such a short period of time was impossible unless one had powerful spatial abilities. However, the only spatial elemental expert in the Yin family who could do this was Zhou Wen. However, Zhou Wen had been in battle all this time, so it was impossible for him to do such a thing. Furthermore, within Tianzui's temper, it was impossible for him to do such a thing. And Shang had some guesses, but he buried them forever at the bottom of his heart. He didn't even think about it. Retreat. Having achieved his goal, Zhou Wen didn't wish to stay any longer. He wanted to call Zhong Zia and company to retreat quickly. There was no benefit in continuing to be entangled, much less attacking the Holy Land. However, when he said that and looked up into the sky, he realized that Immortal's body had already transformed into countless flower petals. By the time the petals dispersed, Immortal had already vanished. Zhong Zia only left his avatar on the battlefield. His true body rode away on his sword and vanished like a meteor. What happened to the Brotherhood we agreed on? Zhou Wen's mouth gaped open for a long time. The only tragic one was Lu Yun. His movement techniques and escape skills were the strongest among the three of them, but he had been entangled by Xiao. They were both spatial elemental experts, but after being entangled by Xiao, he didn't even have the chance to use spatial teleportation to escape. After all, Lu Yun was good at short-distance teleportation. Long-distance teleportation wasn't his forte, so he was much weaker than Zhou Wen. He needed too much time to prepare, and under Zhao's attacks, he didn't have the time to use long-distance teleportation. In terms of movement techniques, Zhao's trajectory movement technique was even stranger. Furthermore, Xiao was proficient in all kinds of techniques, allowing him to block Lu Yun. Lu Yun was now half dead. He had only managed to hold on until now, because he had the Taiji painting in his hand. Zhou Wen guessed that the Taiji painting was most likely obtained by Jing Daoxian. Bam! When Zhou Wen looked at Lu Yun was struck in the chest by Xiao, causing his sternum to cave in. At the same time, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Along with the blood was the holy artifact ring that Lu Yun had swallowed during the battle. Xiao reached out to grab the holy artifact ring and wore it on his finger. His palm didn't stop as it struck Lu Yun's head again. Lu Yun had nowhere to hide. The armor on his body had long been shattered and couldn't protect him at all. If he were to be struck by Zhao's palm that was augmented by the holy artifact, his entire head would explode. Bam! Zhao's palm struck down, but it didn't hit Lu Yun, but the Chaos Egg. The Chaos Egg forcefully blocked Zhao's terrifying palm. Junior brother, you're finally here. Lu Yun, who had been beaten into a pig's head, was so excited that tears were about to stream down his face. Leave first. I'll take care of this, Zhou Wen said. In fact, there was no need for Zhou Wen to say anything. Lu Yun had already teleported far away. The moment Lu Yun left, he lost the Taiji painting's domain, which restrained the trajectory domain. The surrounding space immediately distorted again as Old K and Nine Yang surrounded him. Holy sh*T, why did they all leave? Only the Egg Sovereign is left. Aren't they fellow disciples? Didn't you say that you would never abandon your brother? I've long said that blood brothers can't be relied on, much less fellow disciples. He's running away too fast. The situation is a little bad. They have escaped, leaving the Egg Sovereign alone. What should we do? Chapter 16:14. Xiao, Nine Yang, and Old K had already displayed their powerful strength. Even powerful existences like Xian and you couldn't gain the upper hand and were even suppressed. Xiao had even beaten up thief sage Lu Yun. If the three of them had attacked Zhou Wen together in the past, the audience wouldn't have had a clear idea of how strong they were. But now, with the three of them attacking Zhou Wen together, the audience shuddered and couldn't help but worry for Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen, you have to pay the price for everything you've done. Old K glared at Zhou Wen coldly as the scepter in his hand emitted a strange, invisible wave. Now that Lu Yun had escaped, it was unlikely that he would return. Without the restraint of the Taiji diagram, Old K and Zhao's domain powers could restrain Zhou Wen. When did I say I was going to run? Zhou Wen said indifferently. He had no intention of running, or he would have fled with Lu Yun. As Zhou Wen spoke, the void true salamander pounced over again. This time, it didn't return to the cosmos to recover. Its strength had been greatly suppressed by the rules of Earth. It couldn't even maintain its Hellgrade strength. The void lightning descended and bombarded the Chaos Egg in a frenzy. The void true salamander opened its mouth and tried to devour Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen didn't dodge and allowed the Chaos Egg to be devoured by the void true salamander. As the void lightning was too intense, the audience could only see the lightning engulfing Zhou Wen. They didn't know what was happening inside. However, Old K and the other two could see clearly that after the void, true salamander devoured Zhou 1, a saber beam shot out from its body. From its head to its tail, it seemed to have been sliced in the middle. The void true salamander's lightning body split into two, revealing Zhou 1, who was wearing the Dragon King armor and holding bamboo blade. As for the void true salamander's lightning body, it rapidly dissipated until nothing was left. At this moment, the audience could clearly see Zhou 1's floating figure. Without the protection of the Chaos Egg and the intense light from the void lightning, everyone could clearly see his figure. King of Thieves, F*CK. So the Egg Emperor is the King of Thieves. People immediately recognized Zhou 1 from the limitless Demon Dragon King armor. When Zhou 1 appeared as Human Emperor, he wore the Dragon Enslaved armor. As for the Thief King, he wore the limitless Demon Dragon King armor. One of the benefits of the limitless Demon Dragon King armor was that it could fuse 9 into 1. Apart from Zhou 1 himself, he could also borrow the strength of 8 creatures after wearing the armor. Now, Zhou 1 had already imprinted the limitless Demon Dragon King's mark on the 8 companion beasts. The 8 companion beast tattoos shimmered. However, due to the Dragon King's armor, outsiders couldn't see the shimmering companion beast tattoos. Fiend Armored Tiger Soul General, Soul Reflection Mirror, Golden WIRM Scissors, Truth Listener, and other companion beasts. Demonic Neonate's tattoo also shimmered with a demonic glow. Demonic Neonate finally woke up and returned to Zhou 1's body. Furthermore, she had already reached the Terror grade. The strength of the 8 companion beasts had already fused with Zhou 1's body. Zhou 1 could freely use all their strength for his own use. Among the 8 companion beasts, Truth Listener contributed the most strength, followed by the Golden WIRM Scissors. Next was the Terror grade, Demonic Neonate. Furthermore, among the 8 companion beasts, only Demonic Neonate wasn't at the Calamity grade. Zhou 1 held the bamboo blade in hand as the black crystallite Dragon King armor emitted a strange black glow. The black light flickered like flames. All the light that approached the black light seemed to be sucked away. I knew it. How can there be so many experts among humans? So it's the King of Thieves. It's no wonder he's so good at spatial powers. The King of Thieves' companion beasts are even more impressive than him. That's not right. The King of Thieves previously fought Ya and Xian. They are actually fellow disciples? This world is so complicated. Even if he's the King of Thieves, it should be very dangerous facing the 3 saints, right? Why did he unsummon the void, true salamander? I think the King of Thieves isn't as strong as his companion beasts, right? That's right. The void, true salamander and the Tiger Soul General are invincible. Quickly summon them. They should be able to fight the 3 saints. They might even have a chance of defeating them. Everyone hoped that Zhou 1 would summon the void, true salamander and the Tiger Soul General. Zhou 1 also wanted to summon them, but it was impossible for him to do so. The Tiger Soul General needed time to become stronger. It wasn't suitable for the present situation, so summoning it was useless. The void true salamander wasn't his companion beast at all. It had already been killed by him. Instead, there was a mortal void true salamander companion egg that Zhou 1 hadn't hatched yet. Even if it hatched, it wouldn't be of much use in a battle of this level. Don't you want to kill me? Come on then. Zhou 1 held the bamboo blade in hand, as his essence energy was extremely converged. He stood on the ruins of the teleportation array and looked at Old K and company. I'll fight you, Nine Sun said as he walked toward Zhou 1. Wait, Nine Suns. Now isn't the time to be a hero. The teleportation array has been destroyed. The holy god will definitely be enraged. We have to kill him. There can't be any accidents, Old K said as he called out to Xiao. Xiao, let's attack together. This time, we can't let him escape no matter what. Xiao nodded and surrounded Zhou 1 with Old K. He was also puzzled. Zhou 1 clearly had the chance to leave with Lu Yun, so why didn't he? What are you trying to do? Xiao was filled with questions, but he had no choice but to participate in the siege against Zhou 1. He had to maintain his identity in the Holy Land and not let anything happen to him. Under such circumstances, it was impossible for Xiao to secretly help Zhou Wen. As long as he made any abnormal movements, the holy god would definitely see through him. Nine Suns threw a punch at Zhou Wen. The force of his punch was like the blazing sun in the sky, as though it could melt everything. With a thought, Zhou Wen unsheathed the bamboo blade in his hand. His entire body seemed to fuse with the bamboo blade as his body followed a strange arc as he slashed at Nine Suns. If Nine Suns was a blazing sun that could burn everything, then Zhou Wen was a celestial immortal that had ascended. The strike didn't look fast, but it was elegant, as though it was untainted by the mortal world. It didn't look fast, but it dodged Nine Suns' fist. The blade followed an arc and slashed at Nine Suns' throat. Nine Suns was slightly taken aback. It was clearly a light strike that didn't seem to use much strength, but it made him feel like he couldn't block it or dodge it. All he could do was take a step back and dodge the bamboo blade's blade. On the other side, Old K and Xiao attacked from the left and right. Attacking Zhou Wen from different angles. Holy **T. He hasn't summoned the Void, True, Salamander, and the Tiger Soul General. Egg Sovereign. No. Thief King. Don't tell me you really want to rely on that saber to fight the three saints? Seeing that Zhou Wen hadn't summoned his companion beasts, the spectators were alarmed. Even the top experts of the various factions were no exception. Chapter 16:15. The nine yang palms might blotted out the sky. Su's movement technique was strange, and Old K's combat skills were the worst. However, the scepter still had a magical power that allowed it to block Zhou Wen's bamboo blade attack every time. The three of them besieged Zhou Wen, and their attacks were suffocating. Ignoring the ordinary spectators, even existences at the level of Xia Luchuan, Zhang Chuanxiu, and Lance broke out into a cold sweat. They put themselves in Zhou Wen's shoes and imagined how they could withstand such an attack if they were in his shoes. However, no matter how they thought about it, they would soon be unable to withstand it and could only be killed. Lance was too engrossed in his role. After watching for a while, his face turned as pale as snow. In the end, he spat out a mouthful of blood. With the augmentation of the holy artifact, the three experts' strength and speed had reached the heaven realm. Not to mention three. Even if there was only one, there were very few humans who could match them. With three besieging one, anyone would feel that they would definitely lose. However, under the siege of the three, Zhou Wen was like a flying immortal. With the saber in his right hand and the scabbard in his left, he was able to fight the three of them in a stalemate. The various major media outlets were trying their best to analyze the slow-motion footage. Ordinary people couldn't see the battle video at all. Only some special equipment could analyze the slow-motion footage. Professor Gu, the video is still being analyzed. Our level is too low, so we can't see the battle situation. Can you tell us about the current situation? Su, he said to Professor Gu. Professor Gu nudged his glasses and said in a deep voice, even a mythical expert would find it difficult to see the battle situation clearly in a battle of this level. I can only analyze it based on some existing information. Please speak. So he also wanted to know what the current situation was. Although many people believed that Professor Gu was a jinx and that his predictions were completely off, they could only see flashes of light. They had no idea what was going on. Regardless of whether what he said was right or wrong, it was good to hear what he had to say. Furthermore, apart from a portion of Professor Gu's analysis being wrong, some of his analysis was quite reasonable. Professor Gu cleared his throat and said, "We've all seen the King of Thieves' combat prowess in the previous Rubik's Cube ranking battle. Later on, many experts conducted a slow-motion analysis. His combat prowess is indeed very strong, and his level is even higher than Xian Inya. However, they are still on the same level, and he does not have the ability to suppress them. I've already analyzed a portion of the battle between Xian and Inya. Compared to the three great holy disciples, their battle prowess is actually a little weaker. Based on this, The King of Thieves' strength is roughly equivalent to that of a holy disciple, or perhaps even weaker. Of course, if the Thief King uses his companion beasts, the Void True Salamander and Tiger Soul Out. The Void Salamander and Tiger Soul Out are extremely terrifying. And out a companion King, out, the King out, the Saint King out, Saint, Beast King Young out. But he out, as he is, but King is King ISN is. I don't know what his plans are, but everyone has witnessed the strength of the three saints, especially Shao. His strength is terrifying. I really can't think of anyone among humans who could be stronger than him. They are both proficient in spatial powers. In a one-on-one situation, the Thief King might not be able to gain the upper hand, much less 3 against 1. If the Thief King summons his companion beasts, he still has a chance. Otherwise, I really can't think of any chance of him winning. Of course, I believe that the Thief King not summoning his companion beasts is definitely a tactic. At critical moments, he will likely summon his companion beast to fight. Professor Gu continued his analysis. When everyone heard Professor Gu's analysis, they couldn't help but agree. Although Professor Gu's reputation as a toxic healer was already very famous, his words struck a chord in their hearts. Professor Gu is right. The Thief King definitely has a backup plan for keeping his companion beasts and not summoning them. Professor Gu's analysis is quite reliable this time. This time, I hope that Professor Gu isn't a toxic healer. The companion beasts are definitely a backup plan. The Thief King will definitely win. I think it's possible this time. I support Professor Gu. Everyone felt that Professor Gu's analysis was probably correct this time. Looking at the comments and bullet screen comments that he hadn't seen in a long time, Professor Gu was secretly delighted. I should be able to make a comeback this time. I'll completely remove that groundless toxic healer hat. Just as Professor Gu was thinking about how to restore his reputation and prestige, Sue received a notification from the program team. She said with a look of joy, "Our staff has already analyzed a portion of the video. Although it's only a portion, according to the technicians, it's already very exciting. Cut the crap. Hurry up and release the super slow motion analysis. I want to see the video. Please release it quickly. My goddess Sue spare me. Hurry up and release the video, all right? My little heart can't take it." Sue smiled and said, "I know that no one wants to listen to me now, but the program team is preparing to send the analysis over. Please wait a moment." Soon, the scene of the program changed to a battle scene. Under the super slow motion camera, the average audience could finally see the battle scene between Zhou 1 and the other two. Although it had been slowed down many times, it looked like the 4 of them were still very fast. Moreover, because 9 suns would release the sun's divine light from time to time, the scene was rather unstable. There were often situations where the entire scene turned white. From the intermittent scenes, it could be seen that the battle between the 3 of them was quite intense. Pay attention to this palm of 9 suns. This palm looks simple, but contains endless mysteries and backups. Regardless of whether the Thief King is defending, attacking, or dodging, 9 Sun's subsequent changes will cause the Thief King to suffer greatly. Look at Zhao's finger. What a terrifying guy. I can't even predict where this finger is pointing. Old K staff techniques are really exquisite. I'm afraid the Thief King will be in trouble next. Professor Gu continued to explain according to the content shown in the video. Look, the Thief King has been suppressed to such an extent. Zhou Wen's image appeared in the video, and Professor Gu hurriedly continued what he had just said. However, halfway through his sentence, he couldn't continue. The smile on his face gradually disappeared and was replaced by a gradually stunned expression. From the attacks of 9 Suns and company, the Thief King could only be in a passive position no matter what. He might even be severely injured. Of course, as the battle was still ongoing, Professor Gu knew that the Thief King wasn't dead. Otherwise, he even felt that Zhou might not be able to survive if he didn't summon his companion beast. However, the content presented on the screen was the exact opposite of his explanation. Chapter 16:16. Professor Gu was speaking enthusiastically. but the scene he saw was far from what he had expected. He couldn't continue after saying a few words. He originally thought that the Thief King situation would be very bad, but the scene that appeared on the screen was that the Thief King was fighting one against three. With the saber in his right hand and the scabbard in his left hand, he forcefully blocked the attacks of the three saints. Furthermore, he didn't look like he was in a sorry state. His movement technique was as elegant as an immortal's. Every move he made looked elegant and calm, without any difficulty. How can this be? Professor Gu was a little dumbfounded. It wasn't just Professor Gu. The audience watching the program were also in a daze. They had already witnessed Jiu Yang and the other two's combat abilities. Not to mention Jiu Yang and Old K. Just Xiao alone gave off an unstoppable feeling. He was clearly an invincible existence, but when fighting Zhou Wan, he couldn't reveal his previous strength and domineeringness. Instead, he felt like his hands and feet were tied. This can't be real, right? Are those three saints going easy on him? Everyone secretly suspected that Xiao, Nine Sons, and Old K had completely lost their previous elegance. It was as though they had gone from invincible kings to hooligans who only knew how to watch from the side. Thinking back to Zhao's violent abuse of Lu Yun, it was hard not to suspect that they were going easy on him. However, experts with good eyesight didn't think so. Xiao and Nine Sons' standards didn't drop. In fact, they performed better than before, but they still couldn't suppress the Thief King. The current Thief King's movement technique was extremely strange. Under the siege of the three, he seemed to be strolling. He wasn't in a rush, nor was he in a hurry. His figure seemed to be moving with the wind. As he advanced and retreated, he easily dodged most of the attacks. Even if there were attacks he couldn't dodge, they were blocked by his bamboo blade and scabbard. The attacks from Jiu Yang and the other two didn't seem to put any pressure on him at all. On the contrary, every seemingly casual swing of the Thief King's saber seemed to put a great deal of pressure on Jiu Yang and the other two, forcing them to be cautious and even retreat. Every attack seemed to be aimed at their most feared weakness. This person's saber technique has probably reached the level of heaven and man annihilation. Zhang Chunxiu exclaimed. What do you mean? Xiao Luchuan didn't understand what Zhang Chunxiu meant. He knew about the unity of heaven and man, but he had never heard of the Heaven and Man Massacre. Zhang Chunxiu explained, you can understand it as the wrath of man and God. Even the heavens can't stand it and want to destroy him. In Guide City, Li Xian and company were also watching the battle. Feng Xiuyan's eyes lit up as his face alternated between worry and joy. At times, he would frown in thought. At times, he would be overjoyed, but at other times, he would look puzzled and confused. I originally thought that my saber techniques were slowly approaching Coach's. Only now do I realize that there's still a huge gap between my saber techniques and Coach's. From the looks of it, I haven't worked hard enough. Feng Chuan muttered to himself. Coach, when will you learn some sword techniques? I really want to see how he uses a sword, Ming Xiu said. The female sword immortal, Qin Zhen, stared intently at Zhou Wan, afraid that she would miss any detail. Among the three of them, she comprehended the most because she had learned transcendent flying immortal. And now, Zhou Wan had used the word immortal to its limits, allowing Qin Zhen to comprehend many things that she had never thought of before. Li Xian wasn't very interested in Zhou Wan's saber techniques. He only felt that Zhou Wan's saber techniques were very powerful and his movement techniques were very strong. He was elegant enough, like an immortal in the wind. Professor Gu, it looks like Thief King really doesn't need to use companion beasts, right? Su Yi's beautiful eyes shimmered as her face was filled with excitement. Although Thief King's reputation wasn't as good as human emperors, he was still a representative of the human camp. He didn't have a contracted guardian and didn't have any connection with the Holy Land. Su Yi hoped that Thief King could win. Yes, it does look a little interesting. Thief King's strength, speed, and saber techniques are unexpectedly strong. Professor Gu said. Cut it out, Professor Gu. I'm willing to respect you as the strongest toxic healer in the world. Professor Gu, you're really impressive. You're so toxic. You're so toxic. You're so toxic. In the future, if anyone dares to say that Professor Gu isn't a toxic healer, I'll smack him in the face. Haha, Professor Gu is also very innocent. No one expected that Thief King would be this strong. He's simply a freak. Professor Gu's reputation as a toxic healer would probably never be washed away. Zhou had to thank the limitless Demon Dragon King armor and the 8 companion bees for being able to fight the 3 of them. The 8 companion bees provided him with strength, especially the strength provided by Truth Listener, Golden WIRM Scissors, and Demonic Neonate. They were unimaginably powerful. With their combined strength, Zhou strength and speed could barely reach the threshold of the Heaven Realm. Although he had only barely touched the threshold, Xiao, Yi, and Nanyang had also used holy artifacts to reach the Heaven Realm. They were inferior to true Heaven Realm experts, so they had also barely touched the threshold. Under such circumstances, Zhou could be considered to be standing at the same starting point as the 3 of them. To be able to fight 1 against 3, apart from the mystical effects of the disqualified person and the teacher's domain, Zhou transcendent flying immortal had also reached an extremely high realm. In terms of realm, transcendent flying immortal was in no way inferior to true Heaven Realm experts. Even a top Heaven Realm expert might not be stronger than transcendent flying immortal. Furthermore, as the battle continued, transcendent flying immortal was still transforming. His movement techniques and saber techniques became more and more elegant and ghostly. People were astonished to discover that despite the 3 saints besieging Zhou, it made them feel like they were in danger, as though they could be killed by Zhou at any moment. Xiao, Yi, and Nanyang could still resist Zhou in terms of technique and realm, but Old K was slightly inferior in this aspect. He relied on the holy artifact scepter in his hand to block Zhou's attacks. Although Zhou had the upper hand, it was still impossible for him to completely break through the trio's siege. He only had the advantage, but it wasn't an overwhelming advantage. However, Zhou wasn't in a hurry. Even though he was fighting, he was also practicing his saber. Transcendent flying immortal was transforming. He had already vaguely touched upon a new realm, but it was only a tiny bit of it. It was still unknown if he could fully comprehend it. Apart from practicing transcendent flying immortal, he had also been collecting the energy trajectories of Nanyang and company in the teacher's domain. Only a perfect domain at the Heaven Realm could leave a trajectory in the teacher's domain. The trajectory left behind by the Void Lightning had condensed into the Void Lightning technique. It was a primordial energy art. Although Zhou hadn't had the time to study it carefully, he knew that it was definitely not bad. Now, the trajectory left behind by Nanyang and company was constantly being mended. Perhaps they could condense a primordial energy art. Chapter 16-17. Your Excellency, should we go out and help Nanyang and the rest? The group of saints knelt on one knee and asked the Saint God for instructions. The teleportation array has been destroyed. How are you going to help them? The Saint God wrote lightly. The group of saints was speechless. Even your Excellency can't do anything? A saint asked. Of course there is a way, but it's not that easy to get out. It's too late now. Besides, even if we can send you out, what can you do with your strength? The Saint God said expressionlessly. The saints fell even more silent. Nanyang and the other 2 were already the cream of the crop among the saints and had the augmentation of the holy artifact. Yet, they were unable to defeat Zhou. Even if they could get out, they wouldn't be of much use in such a battle. It would even be difficult for them to participate in the battle. You underestimate yourselves too much. How can the saints of the Holy Land only have this little ability? Watch carefully. The show is just beginning, the Saint God said with a deep gaze. Just as the Saint God had said, Nanyang and the other 2 were definitely not easy to deal with for being able to stand out in such a cruel environment and become the holders of the holy artifacts. Old K blocked the bamboo blade with his scepter and shouted at Juyong and Xiao in a deep voice. At this point, there's no need to hide anymore. If we can't kill him here today, How can we face His Excellency, the sacred God? His words were impassioned, but there was another meaning to them. In fact, he wanted to tell Nanyang and Xiao that if they couldn't kill Zhou, the holy deity probably wouldn't let them off easily, even if they returned to the Holy Land. At the very least, they would be taken back by the holy artifacts. At the very worst, their lives might be in danger. Xiao and Zhuyong also understood that the Holy Land was not a true Holy Land. There were too many cruel competitions there. If they failed and made a huge mistake, there would be countless holy disciples who wanted to use their corpses to climb up to the 6 holy temples. They weren't completely irreplaceable, at least not yet. Xiao and Nanyang looked at each other. The sun god pearl in Nanyang's arms glowed brightly. His entire body seemed to turn into light as he charged at Zhou with a terrifying heat. Previously, although the 9 suns were also blooming with the divine light of the sun, they only used powerful destructive power. They didn't have this kind of terrifying melting temperature. On the other side, the ring on Zhao's finger also emitted a strange light, causing Zhao's body to distort in a strange way. Even his figure could not be seen clearly. When he attacked Zhou, his figure seemed to distort strangely in space. He clearly looked like he was passing by, but he appeared on the other side of Zhou. Zhou's saber that slashed at Xiao failed to touch him. Old K desperately attacked the scepter in his hand, but it only increased the power of the scepter by a little. It didn't produce an even stronger effect. Even so, Zhou was already in danger. Bang! The bamboo blade collided with Nanyang's fist. Although the bamboo blade was extremely tough and was only at the terror grade, it was in no way inferior to a calamity grade weapon. However, under Nanyang's fist, it was forcefully bent as it retreated along with Zhou's body. However, the moment the force dissipated, the bamboo blade bounced back. Zhao's figure was like a wandering ghost as he dodged the scabbard in Zhou's left hand. When he was close to Zhou, his sharp fingernails slashed at Zhou's neck. Zhou had already tried his best to dodge, but he was still a little too slow. A deep mark appeared on the armor on his neck, almost touching Zhou's skin. Zhou immediately felt the pressure increase. Xiao and Nanyang had caused him huge trouble. Is it still too much? He should be summoning his companion beasts, right? Xiao Luchuan said after some thought. Xiao and Nanyang will probably become our enemies in the future. I wonder how many more saints like them are in the Holy Land. Zhang Chunxiu said after some thought. Who knows? Those saints are all extremely talented. I wonder where the Holy Land found so many children to nurture. Xiao Luchuan thought for a moment and said, thankfully, even if they have talent and resources, they might not be able to become true experts. It still depends on their beliefs and perception. There probably aren't many saints like Xiao and Nanyang in the Holy Land. Even if there aren't many, there are at least 6 in each hall, Zhang Chunxiu said. Someone like Old K is clearly inferior. If the holy artifact holders of the other halls are like Old K, it will be much easier for us to deal with them, Xiao Luchuan said. However, Zhang Chunxiu shook his head and said, don't underestimate Old K. Although his combat ability and talent are indeed inferior to Xiao and Nanyang's, sometimes a strong person might not be the best choice. The power he possesses isn't his combat ability. His ability to control the overall situation is what he's good at. Didn't you realize that the loopholes created by Xiao and Nanyang's attacks have always been made up for by Old K? Zhang Chunxiu said as he glared at Xiao Luchuan. Of course I did, but I still feel that Xiao and Nanyang are more terrifying, Xiao Luchuan said with a smile. Zhang Chunxiu didn't wish to harp on this problem. He looked at the scene transmitted by the satellite and muttered to himself, let's see how Zhou will deal with it next. Even if he summons a companion beast, he might not be able to control it well in such a fast-paced battle. Everyone felt that Zhou would summon a companion beast at this point in time. But after waiting for a while, Zhou still had no intention of summoning a companion beast. And his current situation had become extremely bad. Under the frenzied attacks of the 3 saints, wounds constantly appeared on his body. That's more like a saint. The saint deity was very satisfied with the trio's performance, especially Xiao and Nine Yang's. They even surprised him. The speed at which the two of them grew was beyond imagination. Every saint in the Holy Land was a genius, but in comparison, the other saints appeared too mediocre. The Shang deity had already begun to think that she should raise the standards when searching for a holder of the relic for the other three halls. She should search according to the standards of Xiao and Jiuyang. A holy disciple, like Shenluo, must not be allowed among the holy sons. He should be summoning a companion beast, right? The saint deity was also secretly guessing when Zhou would summon a companion beast. Zhou had no intention of summoning a companion beast at all. He held the bamboo blade and constantly brandished it. His body moved with the saber's momentum. Although he had fallen into a predicament, his posture wasn't messed up. In layman's terms, even if his face was beaten into a pig's head, his hair wasn't messed up. Chapter 16:18. Zhou wasn't trying to look cool. He had been maintaining the transcendent flying immortal realm, which was why he had such an effect. No matter how disadvantaged he was, his posture was still as elegant as an immortal's. Previously, when Zhou was fighting Star-Lord Lianzhen, he had been practicing Transcendent Flying Immortal. Transcendent Flying Immortal had already reached an extremely high level at the Calamity grade. In the battle with Jiuyang and the other two, he had pushed Transcendent Flying Immortal to the limits of the Heaven Realm. However, no matter how extreme a Heaven Realm martial technique was, it was still a Calamity grade martial technique. It was impossible for it to help Zhou reverse the situation. Zhou had never come into contact with the Apocalypse stage, nor did he know what it was. It was impossible to push Transcendent Flying Immortal to the Apocalypse stage. However, during the battle, Zhou vaguely felt that Transcendent Flying Immortal seemed to lack something, but he couldn't grasp what it was. With the suppressive battle that Nine Sons and company exerted on him, Zhou wanted to figure out what he felt was missing. The disqualifier allowed Zhou to deduce his opponent's weakness. Sure, you constantly replicated his opponent's trajectory, allowing Zhou to understand their strengths better. However, there was one thing that left Zhou puzzled. After fighting for so long, there were already many trajectories left on the master domain. It almost didn't increase. However, for some reason, the three trajectories were still incomplete. They didn't form a complete puzzle like the Void, True, Salamander's trajectory before finally turning into an essence energy art. Could it be that these three people relied on holy objects to reach heaven-level perfect domains? So in theory, their domains aren't perfect, so they can't form a perfect jigsaw puzzle? Zhou guessed. He had already tried many times, but no matter how sure you replicated their trajectories, he didn't add any new trajectories. Zhou wasn't in the mood to study it. His mind was still focused on Transcendent Flying Immortal. What's missing? Zhou thought about it, but he couldn't figure out what was missing. The current Transcendent Flying Immortal could be said to have reached the pinnacle of elegance. Be it its trajectory or intent, there were no flaws. Even sure you couldn't find any imperfections. Zhou still felt that something was missing from such a perfect Transcendent Flying Immortal. Could it be that it lacks the domineering aura of Transcendent Flying Immortal? Zhou thought of a possibility. Previously, when Zhou studied Transcendent Flying Immortal, he took the domineering path and eventually created Immortal Slaying. Now that Transcendent Flying Immortal had changed to an elegant Immortal Tao, it naturally did not have that domineering aura. Zhou was wondering if the Transcendent Flying Immortal of the Immortal Tao lacked that domineering aura. If he fused the domineering aura with the Immortal Tao, would it have a stronger effect? However, after some thought, Zhou eliminated the possibility. The Immortal Tao was particular about elegance, and even the trajectory was an arc tyranny, on the other hand, was straightforward. The fastest, strongest, fiercest, and most domineering attack naturally had to go in a straight line. Although they were both Transcendent Flying Immortals, In essence, the two had completely different models. It was impossible to merge them into one. If it's not lacking in domineeringness, what is it lacking? Zhou pondered as he fought. Qi, Xiao Luo's palm, slashed across his waist like a blade, cutting a hole in his waist armor. Blood flowed out from the crack in the armor. Zhou already had quite a number of such wounds on his body. There were also burns left behind by Nine Suns' sun god power. The armor that the limitless demon dragon king had transformed into was only at the Terror grade after all. Its abilities far exceeded its level, but also had obvious flaws. The defense of a Terror grade armor was almost negligible under the attacks of a Calamity grade expert. Only an armor with absolute defense like the Dragon Imprisonment armor could withstand a little. The Dragon King armor wasn't the Dragon Imprisonment armor, so it couldn't reach that level. Therefore, the injuries were very serious. If the Dragon King armor shattered, Zhou would no longer be able to use the powers of Truth Listener and the other companion beasts. When that happened, he would no longer be able to fight Nine Suns and company. It would be very difficult even one-on-one, much less 1 against 3. As the analysis was very slow, the program team played the video much later than the real battle scene. Just like that, they skipped a lot of content in the middle and began playing the analysis from the back. If they really played everything, the battle would probably have ended many days ago. The content of the analysis was Xiao and Nine Suns' outburst. When Zhou was in danger, he had already suffered quite a number of injuries. His armor was covered in scars and char black. It looked rather terrifying. When Professor Gu saw this situation, he was immediately delighted. Zhou's actions had really hurt him. He didn't even dare read the comments because they were all saying that he was a jinx. When Professor Gu was young, he had also been called a genius. However, that was in a third-tier city in his hometown. Later, after he was admitted to a famous school and met geniuses from all over the Federation, he realized that the talent that he had been proud of in the past was nothing worth mentioning. He had also worked hard and thought of using his hard work to change his life, but no matter how hard he worked, the geniuses of his generation were like mountains that he could only look up to. This was because he knew that no matter how hard he worked, it was impossible for him to become the best in combat. Therefore, he turned to studying various theories. Although he didn't fall behind in his cultivation and was still cultivating, in comparison, his combat ability and level were far inferior to his eyesight. With the results of those years of research, Professor Gu became a professor and participated in many programs. He could be considered a real talent, and some of his analysis was indeed on point. Soon, he accumulated a reputation. For so many years, he had always been the most popular person in the industry. It could be said that he was the authority in this field. Professor Gu had always been proud of this, and even became a little conceited. He couldn't listen to the opposing opinions of others. No matter what he did, he felt that he was right and others didn't understand. However, in recent years, he had been very unhappy. Previously, his analysis of Human Emperor, the King of Thieves, and the others had frequently been wrong. That was something that had never happened before. Recently, he had been labeled as a jinx professor. Today, it was even more outrageous. He felt that his face was about to be slapped swollen by the King of Thieves. Now that he saw the King of Thieves at a disadvantage, he immediately felt a refreshing feeling rush from the soles of his feet to his head, instantly invigorating him. Professor Gu knew that his opportunity had finally come. He could finally wipe away his previous humiliation. Now, I'll let you illiterates know what scientific analysis is. Jinx? It doesn't exist. This is the most scientific and authoritative analysis. How can it be wrong? Professor Gu was secretly pleased with himself. He cleared his throat and said, "Ahem, it's not surprising that such a situation happened. I've already analyzed it before. The King of Thieves can at most compete with a saint. In a 3-on-1 situation, he will definitely lose. Just like my previous analysis, it's time for him to summon his companion beasts. I believe it won't be long before we see the Void, True Salamander, and the Tiger Soul General again. Good night." End of this chapter. Chapter 16-19. Professor Gu's analysis wasn't wrong. If Zhou Wen really had the Void True Salamander and the insane Tiger Soul General, he would definitely summon them now. Unfortunately, Zhou Wen didn't have them at all, so he couldn't summon them even if he wanted to. Zhou Wen's heart was like a boulder. Although he was in an extremely dangerous situation, he didn't panic at all. His mind was so calm that it was hair-raising, as though he didn't know what fear was. The damage to the Dragon King armor increased, and Zhou Wen knew that he didn't have much time left. What's missing? Zhou Wen was still constantly searching for an answer in the battle. At the stage where Zhou Wen's strength and speed could reach, Transcendent Flying Immortal could be said to be a perfect technique. It fully utilized Zhou Wen's strength and speed. To be able to fight against 3 holy disciples with holy artifacts for so long, without being able to find any flaws, and only being suppressed because his strength was inferior, was enough to show how powerful Transcendent Flying Immortal was. That's not right. Zhou Wen suddenly realized the problem. It was true that Transcendent Flying Immortal was very powerful, but it wasn't all thanks to Transcendent Flying Immortal that Zhou Wen was able to gain the upper hand despite fighting 3 alone. The disqualifier allowed Zhou Wen to easily see through his opponent's weaknesses and flaws, while the Master Domain allowed Zhou Wen to quickly understand his opponent's abilities. Transcendent Flying Immortal looked so powerful because of the augmentation of these 2 abilities. If it wasn't for the disqualifier and the Master Domain, would Transcendent Flying Immortal still be so powerful? When Zhou Wen thought of this problem, he immediately understood why he felt that Transcendent Flying Immortal was lacking something. The strength of Transcendent Flying Immortal was built on external factors, and it wasn't really that powerful. Now, Transcendent Flying Immortal was still lacking, but this deficiency had been made up for by external forces. Making up for it was sometimes a good thing, but sometimes wasn't necessarily a good thing. It was just like an ancient king who encountered a famine. He didn't even have chaff to eat, and he even had the tragedy of exchanging his children for food. The commoners had no rice and were already at a critical juncture of life and death. After a minister reported it, the king actually said, "Why don't they eat meat?" This king did not lack food and clothing, so naturally, he would not be able to experience famine and hunger. He would never be able to put himself in someone else's shoes to think of a solution, and it would be difficult for him to grow. Now, Transcendent Flying Immortal was like a youth with a good family environment. Although he was already outstanding enough, he was still a flower in a greenhouse. He had yet to experience wind and rain, and had yet to become a true expert. With this in mind, Zhou Wen resolutely gave up on using the disqualified and teacher's domain. He forcefully removed the influence of the 2 powers on Transcendent Flying Immortal. This was very dangerous. Doing such a thing in such a passive situation was practically taking chestnuts out of the fire. Since Zhou Wen had done so, he naturally had the confidence. Even if Transcendent Flying Immortal had yet to fully mature, he wasn't a king or a flower in a greenhouse. As the person who controlled Transcendent Flying Immortal, he was confident that he could make Transcendent Flying Immortal truly mature before things turned bad. Even though Zhou Wen was confident, Transcendent Flying Immortal still put him in an extremely dangerous situation after losing the augmentation of his teacher domain and the disqualified. In that instant, Zhou Wen seemed to lose his original spirituality. Although his moves were still very elegant, he appeared somewhat dazed as though he had lost his direction. Bam! Zhou Wen failed to dodge Old K's scepter and was struck in the abdomen. He flew backward like a shrimp as the armor on his abdomen shattered, revealing his swollen abdominal muscles. Not long after his body flew backward, Nanyang had already appeared behind Zhou Wen. A sun-like fist slammed into Zhou Wen's back. If it were before, with the augmentation of the disqualified and the teacher domain, Zhou Wen would have been able to predict and dodge this strike. But now, Zhou Wen felt a little slow. His movement technique was still strange, but he failed to dodge the punch. All Zhou Wen could do was turn around with all his might. He raised his scabbard and bamboo blade and crossed them in front of his chest, forcefully blocking the sun-like fist. Flames exploded as the high temperature enveloped Zhou Wen's body like a furnace. Many parts of the Dragon King armor on his body had already turned into red-hot metal as molten metal dripped down. This was even after Zhou Wen had used all his primordial energy to protect the Dragon King armor. Otherwise, the armor might have already turned into molten metal. Zhou Wen fell into an extreme disadvantage. In a short period of time, the Dragon King armor suffered serious damage and was about to collapse. Professor Gu had been looking forward to the scene of Thief King summoning his companion beasts, hoping to wash away his reputation as a toxic healer. However, from the slow-motion video that was analyzed, Thief King didn't seem to have any intention of summoning his companion beasts. Despite being at such a disadvantage, he still insisted on fighting the three saints. "What are you doing? Why aren't you summoning your companion beasts at such a time? Do you really want to die?" Professor Gu shouted inwardly, wishing he could help Zhou Wen summon the Void, True Salamander, and the Tiger Soul General. Even if he could only summon one, he could wash away his reputation as a toxic healer. However, there was nothing. Thief King was still fighting alone. When a video of Zhou Wen forcefully severing the connection between the disqualified and the teacher domain with transcendent flying immortal was analyzed, Professor Gu nearly jumped out. What's going on? If he doesn't summon his companion beasts, his life will be gone. What's the use of tactics? That's not the way to hide. There should be a limit to acting like a pig to eat a tiger. Otherwise, he will really become a pig. Professor Gu was somewhat agitated as he voiced a series of doubts. Professor Gu's words were harsh, but no one refuted him. Everyone had the same thoughts as Professor Gu. If he didn't summon his companion beasts at this point in time, it would be too late even if he did. If he was seriously injured and no longer had any combat strength, the three saints could completely bypass the companion beasts and kill Thief King first. When that happened, the powerful Void, True Salamander, and Tiger Soul General would vanish as well, no longer of any use. Don't tell me Thief King has gone overboard and turned into a pig? Many people had such worries. After all, the battle situation was right in front of them. Thief King had already fallen into an absolute disadvantage. His injuries were worsening, and he was on the verge of death. The veins on Professor Gu's forehead protruded as he roared inwardly. "Summon your companion beasts. Hurry up and summon your companion beasts. You can't King not summon your companion beasts just because you want to scam me, right?" Looking at the injured Thief King, Professor Gu suddenly felt a little afraid. Am I really a toxic healer? Because of my toxic healer, Thief King has been amused. He would rather die than summon his companion beasts. Apex. Chapter 16:20. What is he doing? Even Jiang Yin frowned as he watched the live stream, much less Professor Gu. He naturally knew that Zhou Wen didn't have a Void, True Salamander. But at this point in time, he hadn't summoned any companion beasts. He was still fighting the three saints without finding an opportunity to escape. This clearly wasn't Zhou Wen's style. Old Zhou, don't tell me you mistakenly think that he's like me and has an undying body? Li Xian said with a naughty smile. Others might not understand Zhou Wen, but he knew him very well. For a fellow like Zhou Wen, if his life was truly in danger, he would run faster than anyone else. It was impossible for him to fight the enemy to the death. Since Zhou Wen had done so, he definitely had a plan, so Li Xian wasn't worried at all. Feng Xiuyan and Ming Xiu shared the same thoughts as Li Xian. They had an almost blind confidence in Zhou Wen, so they also believed that Zhou Wen was setting up a trap. The current disadvantage was just an illusion to lure the enemy. Don't you think of a way to help him? Xia Xianhua looked at Li Xian and company. She was somewhat puzzled. Were these guys plastic brothers who had long wished for Zhou Wen's death? Otherwise, they wouldn't be anxious at all despite Zhou Wen's prolonged battle. They had no intention of thinking of a way to help. Even Li Xian had a look of excitement, as though he was delighted that Zhou Wen had been killed. Help him? Why help him? A fellow like Zhou Wen doesn't need anyone's help, Li Xian said with a smile. Xia Xianhua sized up Li Xian, but she was trying to determine what he meant by that. Do they really think highly of Zhou Wen and believe that he can handle it himself? Or do they wish for him to die? However, Zhou Wen's situation wasn't optimistic. It could be said that he was at a critical juncture. This made Xia Xinyue guess that the latter was more likely. The city hasn't even been built, but the internal conflict is already so serious. Xia Xinyue thought to herself, Coach is just practicing. He doesn't need any help. Feng Xiuyan's words made Xia Xinyue feel that the internal strife was dark and terrifying. At this point in time, he was still practicing his saber. Was there anyone who practiced their saber like this? He didn't even know how to lie, or rather, he was too lazy to cover up. As the saying goes, the master will starve after teaching his disciple. This disciple hasn't even finished his apprenticeship, but he's already hoping that his teacher will die early. Xia Xinyue sighed inwardly. Coach is teasing them. When he's tired, it'll only be a blink of an eye for him to turn defeat into victory, Mingxiu added. It's already like this, yet he managed to turn the tables in the blink of an eye. Can those words be any more fake? Xia Xinyue felt indignant for Zhou Wen as she looked at the only female among them, Qinjun. She knew that Qinjun had always considered himself Zhou Wen's disciple. Feng Qiuyan and Mingxiu were only considered half-disciples, but she was a true disciple. Perhaps she wouldn't be as realistic and heartless as Li Xian and company. Seeing Xia Xinyue look at him, Qinjun's eyes were filled with admiration. He said excitedly, Senior Zhou is teaching me the essence of transcendent flying immortal through actual combat. In order for me to understand it, he deliberately didn't use his full strength so that I could understand it clearly. Senior really put in a lot of effort, just like how he gave me the notebook back then. Xia Xinyue looked at Qinjun with an odd expression. It was unknown if she was telling the truth or acting. If she was acting, she looked sincere and sincere, as though it came from the bottom of her heart. It didn't seem fake no matter how she looked at it. However, if she wasn't acting, wouldn't it be too fake to say such words? Unless her brain was damaged, she wouldn't be able to say such words. Now that Zhou Wen is about to be killed, you're still deliberately not using your full strength to teach. Are you really stupid or just pretending? Xia Xinyue began to doubt her judgment. She couldn't help but carefully watch the battle livestream. Li Xian and company said that Zhou Wen was deliberately hiding his strength, but no matter how Xia Xinyue looked at it, she felt that Zhou Wen was about to be killed. He didn't look like he was hiding his strength at all. Are these four really stupid, or do they really want Zhou to die? In any case, Xia Xinyue couldn't tell that Zhou Wen had any chance of survival. Summon a companion beast. Summon a companion beast. Summon a companion beast. Professor Gu's eyes were bloodshot as veins protruded from his forehead. He pressed his hands on the table and stood up, roaring at the top of his lungs. He didn't want to be a toxic healer, much less Zhou Wen to death. But today was King Odd. The Thief King was about to be killed, but he still hadn't summoned a companion beast. This didn't make sense. It was illogical. Now, Professor Gu was a little afraid of himself. In the past, he didn't take it to heart when people said that he was a toxic healer, but now, he couldn't explain why the Thief King hadn't summoned a companion beast. This was impossible. Unless... Professor Gu's voice was hoarse. As there were too many blood vessels, the whites of his eyes had turned completely red. He looked ferocious and terrifying, but he was extremely anxious and uneasy. Could it be that I'm really a toxic healer? Be it those who could understand the battle or those who couldn't, watching the slow-motion analysis, they were all puzzled. They couldn't understand why this was happening. Professor Gu's healing powers are a little strong. The Thief King is about to be hit. Professor Gu, Lord Gu, I'm begging you, stop summoning companion beasts. Please don't milk. It's over. With Professor Gu's healing, even the Thief King can't protect him. He's doomed. The Thief King has lost all his intelligence after being healed. He's about to die. He definitely can't summon his companion beasts. Perhaps they have already gone on strike and rebelled. Toxic healer professor. He lives up to his reputation. What a pity for the Thief King. The female voices that supported the Thief King were on the verge of tears as they begged Professor Gu to stop healing. I'm not a toxic healer. I'm not. Professor Gu's heart was on the brink of collapse. He was already somewhat delirious. He actually jumped onto the commentary platform and pressed his hands on the big screen used for the broadcast. He slapped the screen loudly as the image on it shook. At the same time, he roared at the top of his lungs, "Summon my companion beasts." It's over. Those who had seen the power of Professor Gu's toxic healer felt their hearts turn cold. Professor Gu was working so hard that the Thief King wouldn't be able to live up to his roar, even if he didn't die. Bam! Zhou body was once again struck by Old K's scepter. His body flew to the side uncontrollably, and there, Nine Yang and Xiao were already ready to strike. Their sun-like fists and demonic phantom-like fingers struck at Zhou, who had already lost his balance. Their attacks were already within reach. Apex. Chapter 16:21. It's over. Upon seeing this situation, Professor Gu's excited spirit plummeted from the peak to the bottom. He nearly collapsed on the commentary platform. The audience was also disheartened. They felt that it wasn't worth it for the Thief King to die just like that. He clearly had such a powerful companion beast, but he didn't use it. It was truly indignant to die in such a grievous manner. Sigh. Xia Xinhua sighed inwardly. She still had a good impression of Zhou. She originally wanted to cooperate with him, but from the looks of it, there was no chance. However, just as Zhou was about to be hit by Nine Yang and Xiao, his body suddenly flipped over in a strange manner. It was as though he had just woken up from a dream and was stretching his back. This seemingly lazy and undisciplined action instantly dodged Nine Yang and Zhao's close attacks. At the same time, it also made Old K, who was chasing after him, lose his target. It seems a little different, Jiang Yin muttered to himself as he looked at Zhou Wen's appearance. The real show is about to begin. Zhong Zia sat in the stone pavilion and leaned against the stone railing. He held a pipe in one hand and a handful of fish food in the other before casually throwing it into the lake. That fellow's aura seems a little strange. Xiao Luchuan also keenly sensed something. It seems like something fun is about to happen, Zhang Chunxiu said with narrowed eyes. Old K and Nine Yang charged forward to attack Zhou Wen again. On the other side, Zhao's body was like a phantom. His figure flickered in and out of space as he constantly launched attacks from the distorted space, aiming at Zhou Wen's vital points from various unbelievable angles. At this moment, Zhou Wen seemed to be completely devoid of mortal aura. Although his transcendent flying immortal was elegant, it still had a hint of domineeringness to it. It wasn't that Zhou Wen wasn't good at it, nor was it wrong to say that it was domineering. The most primitive skill of transcendent flying immortal was 70% domineering. This was something he was born with. Having trained all this way, it was just too difficult to change. However, Zhou Wen had changed it. There was no longer any hint of domineeringness. Not only was it domineering, even the emotions and desires of the mortal world seemed to have nothing to do with Zhou Wen. Every action of Zhou Wen's made him seem like an otherworldly immortal. There was an indescribable freshness and refinement to him. Jiu Yang, Xiao, and Old K's ferocious attacks had originally been like a violent storm, but in front of Zhou Wen, they seemed to have become a gentle breeze and drizzle. For some reason, those ferocious attacks seemed to have become weak and powerless, easily dispelled by Zhou Wen. Seeing this, the Shang god's pupils constricted. She lost control of her emotions and unconsciously raised her voice. However, the saint wasn't sure if what he saw was what he thought, so he widened his eyes and stared intently at Zhou Wen. Everyone felt that the trio's attacks suddenly turned soft when they arrived in front of Zhou Wen. However, upon careful inspection, they realized that their attacks didn't weaken. They were still as powerful as before. The soft feeling was just an illusion, and the person who created this illusion was naturally Zhou Wen. What's going on? Professor Gu stared blankly at the slow-motion scene. Zhou hadn't summoned any companion beasts, but he hadn't been killed either. Not only had he not been killed, but he had even gained the upper hand. Yes, he had gained the upper hand, an advantage that was visible to the naked eye. No matter how ferocious the trio's attacks were, when they arrived in front of Zhou, it gave people the strange feeling that Zhou was playing with them and not engaging in a life-and-death battle. This feeling was like a professional world boxing champion participating in a variety show. A celebrity from a kung fu movie had insisted on going to the arena to fight the boxing champion. The boxing champion naturally couldn't fight seriously. He was only playing with them for the sake of the show's effects. He pretended to be serious and somewhat helpless. Now, Zhou gave people such a feeling. Powerful experts like Jiu Yang and Xiao actually looked like amateurs in front of Zhou. How did this happen? Professor Gu sat back in his chair and watched everything happen in a daze. He didn't know what to feel. Why does it feel like the Thief King is very... One person thought for a long time, but he couldn't think of a word to describe the Thief King's current state. Immortal. Someone beside him added. Yes, he's an immortal. Why doesn't the Thief King look like a thief? Why does his entire body seem to emit an immortal aura? The person from before slapped his thigh and shouted. It's true. His every move has an otherworldly feeling. He's like an immortal who isn't tainted by the mortal world. Holy Sh*T, I've only seen the Thief King fight so elegantly. Old K smashed his scepter over. Zhou figure seemed to be blown away by the wind from the scepter. Following the movement of the scepter, he gently flicked the bamboo blade in his hand, causing the scepter to tilt to another angle uncontrollably. And in that direction, Nine Yang's punch happened to come over and collided with the scepter, producing a shocking explosion. The resulting shockwave was like ripples of light that rapidly spread out in all directions. Everything that came into contact with the shockwave was shattered by the shockwave and melted into magma. Old K was sent retreating rapidly and landed on the ground, creating a huge crater. The hand that held the scepter trembled incessantly, almost losing its grip as blood dripped from the webbing between his thumb and forefinger. One of Zhao's knife-like hands slashed at Zhou's neck from behind, while the other hand swung out from the distorted space. His 5 fingers were like hooks as he stabbed at Zhou's abdomen. Zhou didn't even turn his head. The scabbard in his left hand slammed down, knocking away Zhao's hook-like left hand. At the same time, he used the force of the impact to quickly bounce up. As he had borrowed Zhao's strength, the scabbard bounced up extremely quickly. Zhou turned the scabbard in his hand as though he was carrying the scabbard on his shoulder. However, the tip of the scabbard happened to be aimed at Zhao's throat. If Xiao continued charging over and used his right hand to slash at Zhou's neck, then Zhou's scabbard would definitely hit his throat first. Zhou was fighting 1 against 3, but he remained calm and collected. It was as though he had a stroke of genius, and his every move was incomparably elegant. Jiu Yang and the other 2 were like frightened clowns being toyed with by his saber technique, which did not have the slightest trace of smoke or fire. If one hadn't seen the previous battle, it would be hard to believe that the 3 of them were peerless experts. The King of Thieves has really become an immortal, someone shouted. How is this the King of Thieves? He's clearly the King of Immortals, many people agreed. The title of King of Thieves seemed to be unable to match the immortal-like figure in front of them. This is the Immortal Clan's apocalyptic concept. Zenith Heaven True Immortal. He's a human, but he's actually touched the Immortal Clan Supreme concept. Although he's just touched it, but how is this possible? A mere human, a mere human. The Shang deity finally confirmed her thoughts, her eyes filled with shock. Chapter 16:22. Although Zhou's strength was inferior to Nine Yang's and his speed was inferior to Zhao's, under the concept of transcendent flying immortal, he was able to defeat the trio. The encirclement now looked like it was being broken one by one. The hard and straight bamboo blade and scabbard didn't seem as firm in Zhou's hands. It gave off a very strange feeling, as though the blade and scabbard had turned into soft ribbons. Of course, the blade and scabbard didn't change, nor could they be bent. The feeling it gave off was purely a visual illusion brought about by the concept of transcendent flying immortal. Unlike the domineering and direct immortal slaying, Zhou Wen's saber technique was erratic and unpredictable. Not only was the trajectory of the saber abnormally mysterious, but could also guide external forces. The blade brushed against Nine Yang's fist, but didn't clash with his fist. With a twist of the blade, it crossed Nine Yang's fist and slashed at his neck. At the same time, the scabbard in Zhou Wen's other hand slashed at Old K. Old K raised his scepter with both hands to meet the incoming scabbard. The scabbard and scepter collided fiercely, but there was no sound. At the instant the scabbard and scepter came into contact, Zhou Wen released the scabbard. At the instant he released it, he hooked the end of the scabbard with his pinky finger. After the scabbard made contact, it spun around the point of contact. Zhou Wen flipped the scabbard around and smacked it on Old K's head. Old K felt his head buzz as his entire body sank. His body was like a nail that had been smacked into the rock. The scabbard used the rebound force to return to Zhou Wen's hand. Zhou Wen held the scabbard and slashed repeatedly, continuously blocking Xiao Shisan's attacks that flashed like phantoms, forcing Xiao to retreat. Nine Yang retreated at high speed as he struck out with his other hand at the bamboo blade. However, Zhou Wen's fingers moved slightly. The bamboo blade was like a spirit snake as it flicked back and stabbed his wrist. It retracted slightly and severed the tendons in his hand. In the blink of an eye, 2 of the 3 saints were injured. "Coach, I don't know how long I'll need to practice this saber technique to catch up." Although Feng Qiuyan said that, he was calculating how much he had learned. Why isn't Coach practicing sword techniques? Ming Xiu had a look of pity on his face. However, it wasn't that he didn't gain anything. There were similarities between sword techniques and blade techniques. Qin Jun remained silent as she silently memorized Zhou Wen's transcendent flying immortal. She had obtained Zhou Wen's teachings and the secret teachings of transcendent flying immortal. However, even as a female sword immortal who had learned transcendent flying immortal and had become famous because of it, she felt an indescribable sense of awkwardness when looking at transcendent flying immortal. Xia Xianyue was already dumbfounded as she watched on. Many question marks surfaced on her mind. Shisan's saint. Xia Xianyue was the two. He was saint. Saint by Zhou Wen. Saint to saint, saint to saint, Shin saint to saint to Shushan, divine to Xiao Chen Shun, to Chun, to be, bye Xiao bye. Equally shocked were those who had truly understood it. Du Gu, Zhang Chunxiu, Xiao Lu Chuan, and the younger Lance and company had goosebumps. That guy is really amazing. He can actually train his saber skills to such a level. I'm too far behind. No, I have to go practice now. I have to catch up to him as soon as possible. Lance's eyes lit up. He stopped watching the live broadcast and turned around to go to the training ground. Not long after, a series of rumbling sounds came from the training field. Seeing that the 3 saints were being suppressed by Zhou Wen to the point where it was difficult for them to protect themselves, the saint's expression was as cold as ice. Come back. Although he wished he could skin Zhou Wen alive, the saint deity still gave the order to retreat. It didn't matter if Zhu Yang and company died, but if the 3 holy artifacts fell into Zhou Wen's hands, it would undoubtedly be a huge blow to the Holy Land. After receiving the order, Zhu Yang and the other 2 retreated without hesitation. Zhao's figure mysteriously disappeared as he retreated. Zhu Yang and Old K flew in 2 different directions. As the teleportation array had been destroyed, they couldn't directly return to the Holy Land. Although Zhou Wen had figured out the advanced concept of transcendent flying immortal, it could only strengthen his combat strength. It couldn't fundamentally increase his strength and speed. It wasn't a problem for him to fight 1 against 3, but it wasn't that easy to catch up to them. With a thought, Zhou Wen threw the bamboo blade in his hand at Old K. The bamboo blade transformed into a cold beam that drew an arc in the air and rapidly approached Old K's back. Old K had suffered once, so he didn't dare use the scepter to block Zhou Wen's bamboo blade. All he could do was dodge it. However, just as he dodged, he saw a golden light flash above his head. A golden scissors landed on his neck, and with a crack, his head separated from his body. Blood splattered all over the ground as the guardian armor on his body shattered and dissipated. Zhou Wen's figure had already arrived beside Old K's corpse as he reached out to pick up the scepter. The scepter was the same as the Xian Tian Yao that Zhou Wen had previously obtained. They were both holy artifacts of the 6 great temples. However, the Xian Tian Yao came from the Xian Tian Yao temple, while the scepter came from the Divine Emperor temple. In front of the Holy Land, the teleportation array was destroyed and the saints were killed, but no one appeared again. This kind of prestige was probably rare throughout the ages. When had the Holy Land ever suffered such humiliation? Zhou Wen stood there, and the people watching the live broadcast felt like they were watching a deity. The cries of the immortal king resounded everywhere in the Federation. The saints in the Holy Land were shocked and angry. The Shang deity didn't say a word, but his expression was extremely ugly. In a short period of time, Zhou Wen had snatched 2 holy artifacts and blocked the Holy Land's door to kill the saints. It was simply a great humiliation. If it weren't for the suppression of Earth's laws, the Shang deity would have personally killed Zhou Wen. Unfortunately, this was Earth, not a dimension. He could only think about it. Just as people were about to worship Zhou Wen like a god, they saw Zhou Wen bend down, squat down, and reach out to search Old K's corpse. He quickly put the things he found from Old K's body into his pocket. This wretched action formed a sharp contrast with his elegant posture from before. For a moment, everyone was stunned. They couldn't imagine that this was the same person. A second ago, Zhou Wen was like a deity, but now, no matter how they looked at him, he looked like an extremely greedy thief who didn't even let go of corpses. The voices of those who were still shouting the immortal king gradually became softer. They look a little guilty and a little embarrassed. I think it's more appropriate to call him Immortal Thief. No one knew who said this, but it immediately resonated with many people. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.